How to use dark seduction to get what you want. Welcome back to Audiobook Vision. Today, we're diving into Dark Seduction Secrets. This is Book 6 in the ultimate guide to dark psychology in everyday life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to become part of our growing community. Let's get started. Introduction. Seduction, an irresistible force that has captivated humanity for centuries. It's more than an act of attraction, it's a powerful, unspoken art of influence, control, and connection. Beneath the surface of polite smiles and casual conversations lies a world few dare to explore, where the rules of attraction are rewritten, and desires take on a darker, more thrilling edge. Many live their lives waiting for love, longing for connection, or chasing fleeting sparks of passion without ever understanding the forces that govern seduction. Yet, hidden in plain sight are those who have cracked the code, turning seduction into a skill, a weapon. These individuals have ventured into the shadows, embracing the craft with a fervor that defies convention, often discovering a side of human nature that is as intoxicating as it is unsettling. Do you believe people are naturally kind? That love is pure, as romanticized by stories and fairy tales? Prepare to challenge those beliefs. True masters of seduction know it's a double-edged sword, beautiful yet dangerous. It's not about sweet gestures or innocent flattery. It's about power, control, and the raw manipulation of emotions to satisfy desires. In this journey, you'll encounter the gritty truth of seduction, no filters, no fairy tales, just the unvarnished reality of how influence truly works. This book is your gateway into the enigmatic world of dark seduction. You'll uncover the psychological principles that drive attraction, the strategies and tools used by those who master this art, real insights into the minds of those who wield these techniques, each with their unique motives and methods. Maybe you're here out of curiosity, seeking a glimpse into the darker side of attraction. If so, you're in for an unforgettable experience. This journey may be unsettling, but it will be undeniably eye-opening. Perhaps you've been hurt before, an unwitting victim of someone's calculated seduction. If that's the case, let this book arm you with knowledge to protect yourself from future harm. Once you see behind the curtain, the secrets of this shadowy world will no longer hold power over you. Or maybe you're here to learn, to uncover techniques that can transform your ability to influence and attract others. But beware, these methods are potent, and their effects may be far more profound than you anticipate. No matter your reasons, approach this journey with an open mind and a readiness to question what you think you know about love, desire, and human connection. The truth is neither easy nor comfortable, but it is powerful. Are you prepared to step into the shadows and unravel the mysteries of seduction? Turn the page, and let the journey begin. Chapter 1: The Dark Difference. This book takes a deep dive into the reality of seduction, desire, and human relationships. Prepare yourself for information that may shock, surprise, or even offend you. The truth can be difficult to confront, especially when it challenges long-held beliefs. It's crucial to acknowledge that embracing reality, no matter how uncomfortable, is preferable to living in a comforting illusion. Before we get started, it's essential to learn how to distinguish truth from falsehood. This chapter will highlight the disparity between the misleading narratives perpetuated by mainstream society and culture and the actual mechanics of seduction. We will examine significant sources of misinformation and debunk prevalent myths that shape these distorted perceptions. By the end of this chapter, you'll gain insight into the gritty, bittersweet reality of seduction that emerges when the veil of illusion is removed. What you've been taught is misleading. From a young age, individuals encounter numerous influences that skew their understanding of seduction and the dynamics of interpersonal relationships. It's nearly impossible to escape the effects of our surroundings and the ideas we absorb. Various sources contribute to misconceptions about how seduction functions. Arguably, one of the most influential factors shaping the public's perception of seduction is the portrayal of romance in Hollywood films and TV shows. Children grow up consuming media that fosters a fantastical and unrealistic view of love and intimacy. Disney movies, for instance, depict romantic relationships as enchanting and destined adventures between soulmates. While this may seem like a benign influence, it is far from trivial. The psychological models of seduction and romance that children internalize through entertainment can profoundly affect their behavior and expectations in adulthood. As children, we tend to place a high level of trust in authority figures such as parents, teachers, and older family members. Unsurprisingly, few of these adults reveal the harsh truths about love, that it can be painful, infidelity exists, and sexual desire can sometimes lead people to violate their core moral beliefs. Instead, driven by well-meaning intentions, parents and society attempt to shield children from the harsh realities of seduction and its implications. When this misleading view coincides with media influences, children start to develop a skewed understanding of life that doesn't align with reality. Religious beliefs and cultural norms can also contribute to a distorted understanding of love and relationships. Many children grow up in religious environments that frame sex as immoral or shameful, leading them to view sexual desire as something negative that must be suppressed. This dichotomy may create inner turmoil for individuals who feel natural desires that conflict with the beliefs instilled in them. Consider how often we see religious figures behaving unethically, or right-wing politicians advocating for family values only to violate those same principles in their private lives. Such contradictions highlight the issues that arise when individuals hold a warped perspective on sexuality, seduction, and desire. Another significant factor contributing to our misunderstanding of desire and sexuality is that confronting the truth can be painful. It is far more comforting to imagine a world where profound love lasts forever and soulmates exist than to accept the harsh possibility that someone you trust may betray you. Given the myriad influences that promote a romanticized view of love, it's easy to succumb to these idealized notions. Cognitive bias also plays a crucial role in distorting our comprehension of seduction. We often assume our thoughts accurately reflect reality, but this isn't always the case. Our minds can mislead us, obscuring the truth. For example, individuals with an overly romanticized outlook might witness a couple during a dinner and assume they share a deep emotional connection, when in reality both may be engaged in a weekend of infidelity. Additionally, ego protection can cloud judgment. After experiencing betrayal, it's common to cast blame entirely on the other person, viewing them as immoral or untrustworthy. This self-defensive mechanism can prevent us from recognizing our own role in the situation, whether it be unmet sexual needs, declining self-respect, or the reality that the other person may have never truly cared. Our desire to shield our fragile egos often inhibits us from seeing the situation clearly. If you are reading this to gain insights for practical application rather than mere entertainment, take a moment to reflect on the biases that may obscure your understanding of the truth. Do cultural or religious beliefs prevent you from being honest with yourself? Are you influenced by media portrayals of love, sex, and relationships? Whatever the reality may be, confronting it is essential. Embracing the truth is always preferable to playing by false rules, as it ultimately leads to greater fulfillment. The key misconceptions. Love is scarce. One of the most damaging myths that prevents people from embracing the reality of dark seduction is the belief that romantic partners are limited and that only a select few are right for us. At its least harmful, this myth leads individuals to settle for unsatisfying relationships out of fear of loneliness. At its most severe, it can drive people to extreme actions, including violence or suicide, when they lose someone dear to them. In truth, with over 7 billion people on the planet, the qualities you find in one person can be found in many others. Everyone is replaceable. Fixating too much on a single individual can lead to despair and ruin. Just consider the countless lives lost through jealousy and a misguided sense of scarcity. It's vital to free yourself from this illusion before it becomes destructive. Men want sex, women don't. This deep-seated myth is pervasive, often perpetuated by societal double standards. Men who engage in multiple sexual encounters are often celebrated, while women in similar situations may face moral scrutiny. This discrepancy can leave many women feeling guilty, leading them to act in ways that conform to these stereotypes, despite their own desires and sensuality. In reality, women's sexuality is complex and rich. Physiologically, women possess the human body's only organ solely dedicated to pleasure and can experience continuous orgasms. If anything, women are biologically designed to relish sexual experiences more than men. Money is seduction. This misconception is a significant barrier for men trying to navigate the world of seduction. Influenced by Hollywood and marketing, many believe they must buy affection through gifts or being a financial provider. For some, this conventional view dictates that showering a woman with presents will eventually lead to intimacy. Many men are shocked to discover that women are often willing to engage sexually with anyone who can evoke the right emotional responses. Attraction defies logic. Letting external circumstances deter you from pursuing those you genuinely desire is a major hindrance in the realms of dating and seduction. Everyone has a type. This myth frequently serves as an excuse. How often have you heard someone say, I'm not his, her type, or they're out of my league. People often convince themselves they can't attain the romantic interests they desire due to perceived external traits. While some have preferences, this doesn't mean they are strictly limited to a narrow type. Nearly everyone has felt an unexpected attraction to someone outside of their usual parameters. Restraining yourself from pursuing your desired partners is a form of self-sabotage that keeps you confined to your comfort zone. If I had X, then I could get Y. This myth also exemplifies how people make excuses to shield themselves from potential rejection or discomfort in their seductive endeavors. Common variations of, if I had X, then I could get Y, might include wishing to be a different weight, have a different job, adopt a new style, or own a trendier car. These notions are entirely misguided. It's crucial to separate the concepts of seduction and long-term relationships. Successfully captivating and intriguing a potential partner is what matters. Superficial characteristics won't define their attraction to you. Cultural differences are tangible. Many people genuinely think that the factors driving seduction and desire differ magically across cultures. This notion is a misconception. Fundamentally, human beings share the same physical needs and biological structure. While cultural norms surrounding dating and seduction may vary, these differences are largely superficial. At the heart of the issue is an undeniable truth: regardless of their origins, all people experience similar desires and emotions. We all possess an innate drive to reproduce and react with physical and psychological arousal to specific stimuli. Ignoring this fact can significantly limit your dating potential and experiences. Seduction is a skill you can develop. If you're reading this book to enhance your seductive abilities, it's crucial to debunk a significant myth. Believing that seduction is an inherent talent that some are born with and others are not will hinder your growth in this important area of life. Many individuals mistakenly view seduction as a fixed trait. In truth, seduction is not a static quality. People may naturally excel or struggle in this realm, often influenced by their upbringing and social connections. However, regardless of where you start, improvement is always possible. For beginners, simply mustering the courage to ask an attractive stranger for help can be a monumental achievement. For those with advanced skills, the goal might be to engage in thrilling experiences, like spontaneous threesomes at a nightclub. The key takeaway is that seduction can be learned and honed through effort and practice. The dark truth. Now that you're aware of the prevalent misconceptions surrounding seduction and dating, you might wonder what the underlying truth is. The foundational ideas of dark seduction revolve around the complex blend of psychological and physical desires. These motivations often contradict the narratives presented in mainstream media and societal influences. Accepting that attraction and the reasons behind it can be uncomfortable is essential. Those willing to confront the unvarnished truth of what truly motivates seduction and interpersonal connections gain a considerable advantage over others. Subsequent chapters will delve deeply into the concept of dark seduction. For now, consider the following key principles. Understanding the dark seducer. Seduction cannot be divorced from the individuals who engage in it. One way to grasp the essence of dark seduction is by examining the dark seducer. A dark seducer is someone committed to achieving their romantic and sexual desires, willing to employ whatever means necessary. They prioritize what truly works over what is conventionally perceived as appropriate. This individual sees the world as it is, rather than through an idealized lens. A dark seducer recognizes that seduction is a skill, often challenging, and is dedicated to advancing their knowledge and proficiency in this domain. The seductive process. Dark seduction encompasses a clear understanding of how attraction, desire, and chemistry function. There is no element of magic, fate, or love involved, only desires, triggers, and responses. It's all about recognizing needs and exploring ways to fulfill them through timely actions and words. An individual well-versed in dark seduction is adept at dissecting the dynamics of interpersonal interactions. Similar to how an accomplished scientist understands the complexities of the natural world, an expert in dark seduction possesses a profound insight into the social exchanges occurring at any given moment. The intent behind dark seduction. Dark seduction distinguishes itself from mainstream views through its intent, marked by a candid self-awareness of desires and motivations. For instance, many justify their attraction to someone unappealing by citing personality traits. Conversely, a dark seducer acknowledges their actual reasons, perhaps recognizing they are pursuing someone for a strategic advantage. Dark seduction's intention is to perceive and accept the truth without judgment. The desired outcome. What significantly sets dark seduction apart from conventional approaches is the outcome. Someone familiar with the principles of dark seduction can effectively achieve their romantic goals while safeguarding themselves from others' desires. This knowledge ensures they will not operate from a place of scarcity or desperation. Moving forward. With this foundational perspective on dark seduction, you're ready to explore its nuances in greater depth. Whether you aim to apply these insights to your own life, shield yourself from others, or simply satisfy your curiosity, keep reading. The information that lies ahead holds the potential to transform your understanding, revolutionizing your approach to attraction and relationships. Chapter 2. The Allure of Science and the Art of Seduction. A central question for those delving into the realm of dark seduction is whether it qualifies as an art or a science. In reality, it embodies both elements. Much like various creative disciplines, dark seduction is grounded in core principles that reflect its scientific aspect. However, the finesse with which these principles are applied in practical situations transforms them into an artistic expression. In this chapter, you will explore the fundamental principles of dark seduction and identify elements that lean more towards artistry. You'll discover the key concepts behind dark seduction and understand why they possess such potency. Without overwhelming you with excessive scientific detail, we will briefly examine some scientifically validated ideas that contribute to the distinctive power of dark seduction. We will emphasize the necessity of flexibility in implementing these concepts, a hallmark of the seductive arts. Ultimately, we will draw a parallel between dark seduction and plastic surgery, suggesting that the most masterful applications are often the least visible, relying on subtlety rather than overt displays. Timeless principles, infinite possibilities. Dark seduction, like any true art form, encompasses a wide array of creative expressions while being grounded in timeless and essential principles. Consider visual art as an illustration. Although creating art, whether through photography or painting, is typically regarded as an act of pure inspiration, artists consistently utilize fundamental concepts such as depth and lighting, which can easily be attributed to scientific understanding. So, what are the enduring principles that inform dark seduction? Embrace non-neediness. A fundamental tenet for success in dark seduction is the concept of non-neediness. It is crucial to project self-sufficiency and independence, ensuring that you are the one others can rely on rather than the one who depends on them. There is nothing more appealing than a person who draws satisfaction and happiness from within, free from external validation or support. This notion sharply contrasts with conventional views of romance and seduction. Consider the archetype of a love-struck individual, someone wholly engrossed in another, perpetually longing for their attention and affection. This behavior often repels potential partners. A little introspection or honest inquiries with acquaintances will reveal that many relationships falter due to one party coming across as overly needy or clingy. The romantic ideals perpetuated by media and advertising often suggest that attraction equates to obsession. In truth, one of the quickest ways to drive someone away is through excessive attachment. Maintain a balanced perspective. A hallmark of adept dark seducers is their ability to maintain perspective, treating situations with equanimity and equating nothing to a crisis. Seasoned dark seducers exhibit a calmness akin to Zen, remaining unaffected by the highs and lows that life brings. Those who fully embrace the principles discussed in this book possess a wealth of experiences, allowing them to navigate challenges, be they uplifting or disheartening, with a nonchalant shrug and a steady mindset. Reflect on how many people allow setbacks in romance or seduction to affect them deeply. Countless individuals spiral into depression, even despair, when a romantic endeavor fails to meet their expectations. A simple glance at the news reveals tragic stories of individuals driven to desperation, including acts of violence, over the fear of losing someone they cherish. The ability to accept circumstances without intense emotional reactions extends beyond romance and seduction. Dark seducers will find that the skills honed in the realm of seduction enhance their overall approach to life. They navigate their experiences with calm assurance, extracting what they need while responding to challenges with grace and composure. Charismatic confidence. Confidence lies at the heart of dark seduction, but it transcends ordinary definitions. While some individuals exude a quiet confidence, others manifest it selectively or excessively, often appearing arrogant. However, dark seducers possess a distinctive form of confidence known as charismatic core confidence. So, what does this entail, and how does it enhance the art of seduction? Charismatic confidence is inherently attractive, exuding a magnetism that draws others in. Those who are overly self-assured often come off as boastful, diminishing their appeal. Those with fluctuating self-confidence lack the reliability needed for consistent seduction, as their assurance can wane unexpectedly. Some may possess internal confidence that fails to translate into their outward demeanor, speech, or actions. So, what does a dark seducer's core confidence look like? Essentially, the core confidence of adept seducers is independent of external circumstances. It is an intrinsic part of their identity. They display the same level of confidence whether they have a fortune or are broke, whether dressed in casual gym wear or bespoke suits. Research consistently shows that confidence is a key factor in attractiveness, and dark seducers elevate this trait to a level that few can match. The confidence exuded by dark seducers often leans towards Machiavellianism, one of the infamous dark triad traits that studies suggest is evolutionarily appealing. While some dark seducers may fully embody Machiavellian traits, others only possess a hint of them. It can be shocking to realize that behaviors typically deemed psychologically deficient can actually be attractive, but that is a stark reality. Self-love. Narcissism, another trait of the dark triad, manifests in dark seducers as self-love. But what does self-love truly entail? An effective dark seducer maintains a positive self-image and perceives their actions favorably, irrespective of how others may judge them. They are skilled at finding the silver lining in every scenario, allowing them to retain a sense of self-worth without seeking validation from others. What is the end result of this self-love? By prioritizing their own needs and desires above all else, dark seducers never act in a way that compromises their self-interest. They are relentless in their pursuit of personal goals and are unable to care deeply for anything outside their own ambitions. Consequently, they make choices that consistently benefit their interests, never allowing romantic pursuits to derail their aspirations. Resilience. Dark seduction fosters resilience on both small and large scales. The principles described earlier enable the dark seducer to view life and seduction as a grand game. This perspective allows them to navigate life's pressures with ease, as they do not perceive situations as overly significant. For them, nothing truly matters, allowing them to remain unaffected by emotional turmoil. This resilience shares similarities with nihilism. Dark seducers understand that, fundamentally, many things lack meaning. This understanding empowers them to endure nearly anything. Unlike ordinary individuals who become emotionally engaged in various relationships and events, dark seducers maintain a stance of detached aloofness. They approach situations with a nonchalant readiness, always poised to seize the next opportunity. Dark flexibility. After examining the core, scientific aspects of dark seduction, it's clear that the application of these principles is more of an art than a science. Dark seducers excel as artists by tolerating ambiguity and applying their insight in a creatively flexible manner, which can be broken down into two main components: treating situations with a unique approach and utilizing diverse tactics to achieve similar outcomes. First, dark seducers adeptly apply these scientific principles across different contexts. Popular literature on seduction often resorts to oversimplified cliches. How often do magazines like Cosmopolitan publish lists of 10 things all men want? Dark seducers differentiate themselves by recognizing that there is no universal response to seduction strategies. Just as an artist understands that different materials require unique techniques, dark seducers know that each target necessitates a customized approach rather than a one-size-fits-all mentality. Through their experiences, adept dark seducers can craft strategies that are likely to resonate with individual preferences and attitudes. Chapter 3: The Motives of the Dark Seducer. As mentioned briefly in a previous chapter, a crucial element that distinguishes dark seduction from mainstream perspectives is the underlying motives of those who engage in it. This chapter will explore the diverse motivations and viewpoints that shape the minds of those drawn to dark seduction. While dark seducers may share certain characteristics, they fundamentally differ from typical individuals. We will now examine the reasons behind their pursuits and how these motivations set them apart from the general population. Unconventional or unwell. A question that often arises when people first encounter the concept of dark seduction is whether dark seducers operate outside societal norms or if they suffer from mental illness. The truth encompasses both possibilities. Some dark seducers might exhibit traits that align with various psychiatric disorders, such as sociopathy, narcissism, or hypersexuality. Conversely, others may not display these characteristics consistently throughout their lives. Instead, they leverage aspects of such disorders to navigate their seductive endeavors. Consider this analogy: not every dark seducer is a sociopath, and not all sociopaths engage in dark seduction. If we visualize a Venn diagram, one circle represents dark seducers while the other denotes the disorder, with overlapping traits in the center. The degree to which an individual dark seducer reflects tendencies of different personality disorders varies from case to case. Therefore, it is simplistic and stereotypical to generalize all dark seducers in the same way. A more nuanced approach, focusing on individual analyses, is warranted. An essential element of this discussion is the evolving nature of what constitutes a disorder. For example, homosexuality was once classified as a mental disorder, but this perception has changed dramatically. Thus, labeling a dark seducer as hypersexual or sociopathic in a negative light may be misguided. It proves more beneficial to understand what aspects of dark seduction function effectively rather than interpreting them through conventional labels and criteria. One game, many rewards. Having established that not all dark seducers are driven by psychological patterns, what broader motivations fuel their seductive pursuits? What inspires individuals to develop skill sets that often set them apart from societal norms? Let's explore these motives. The motivations behind dark seduction are not mutually exclusive. Life is rarely that straightforward. One person may not be motivated solely by sexual desire, while another may not pursue power in isolation. Most individuals harbor a complex blend of motivations that coexist simultaneously. Some dark seducers may be primarily driven by sexual gratification while also seeking empowerment, while others might alternate between power and sexual motivation depending on the situation. Such motivations can fluctuate in prominence at different times. With that said, let's delve into the various drives and ambitions that characterize dark seducers. Sexual pleasure remains a fundamental drive for those engaged in dark seduction. In today's society, accessing sexual gratification has become increasingly straightforward. With the availability of explicit content online and mainstream erotic narratives like 50 Shades of Grey, one might wonder how this abundance motivates individuals toward dark seduction. Dark seducers can be viewed as connoisseurs of sexual pleasure. Where most individuals might be satisfied with casual encounters or mediocre sexual experiences, dark seducers refuse to settle for anything less than extraordinary. They recognize the multitude of individuals who offer endless possibilities for sexual exploration and fulfillment. To fully indulge in a rich sexual life, dark seducers understand that they must take bold steps to secure such experiences. In addition to the pursuit of sex, the thrill of engaging in complex human interactions motivates certain dark seducers. Everyone seeks some form of influence. While some may find joy in making others laugh, others yearn for authority and respect. Dark seducers, however, pursue influence at its most profound level. Their craft revolves around establishing deep connections through trust and intimacy. Thinking of dark seducers in relation to enthusiasts, they are akin to mountain climbers compared to regular fitness participants. While most people may settle for one or two lifetime romantic pursuits, dark seducers strive to conquer the most daunting challenges of interpersonal influence and seduction over and over, seeking continual triumph. The drive for personal growth also propels many seducers on their dark journey. In the context of Levitra, most mainstream perspectives often overlook night and day. You now grasp the connection between dark seducers and personality, as well as how various overlapping motives can create an intricate blend of drive and addiction for them. Let's emphasize the stark contrast between the motivations of dark seducers and those of most individuals. It's a distinction as profound as night and day. Many people pursue seduction driven by shallow, superficial motives, such as seeking validation, finding purpose, or feeling valued. These reasons are fundamentally opposed to those of dark seducers. As mentioned in the previous chapter, dark seducers fulfill all their basic needs, including esteem, self-worth, and purpose, within themselves. They don't rely on others for these things. The pivotal difference lies in the fact that while many ordinary individuals engage in seduction and relationships to satisfy a personal need, dark seducers have already met their own needs. Consequently, they choose to engage in these pursuits only for enjoyment. Consider this metaphor. Picture two people gambling at a casino side by side. One is anxiously trying to win money to afford food, while the other has ample funds and can comfortably risk whatever they've staked, simply enjoying the thrill of the game. The first player is emotionally tethered to the game's outcome, likely feeling desperation. A loss could be crushing, while a win brings euphoria. The second player, however, approaches the gamble with a detached, intellectual perspective. To them, the outcome is inconsequential. They derive pleasure solely from the act of playing, without any need for a specific result. The second major distinction lies in identity. Dark seducers possess a robust sense of self. They are shaped neither by their surroundings nor by current trends, nor do they let others define them. They do not think of their conquests as my other half, my soulmate, or the missing piece in their lives. They do not derive pride from being a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, recognizing these are merely labels. Their interactions with the opposite sex are just activities they engage in, not a reflection of their identity. In contrast, mainstream individuals often become so intertwined with their relationships and those they engage with that their identities become entirely entangled in these connections. They fail to recognize the separateness of the person they are intimate with, leading to an egoic merger with that individual. This lack of healthy psychological boundaries renders them susceptible to external changes, weakening their independence. Finally, perhaps the most significant distinction between dark seducers and mainstream seducers is the dark seducer's Machiavellian detachment regarding their actions and the associated morality. While a mainstream person engaged in romance may consider the right way to treat someone, a dark seducer focuses solely on the effective way to treat someone. For them, there is no moral dimension to consider, only a relentless emphasis on outcomes and efficacy. Chapter 4: Inner and Outer Darkness. Instead of viewing dark seduction as a singular concept, it's more insightful to distinguish between two categories, inner and outer seduction. Each element of seduction, along with the quest for success in this realm, can be classified as either inner or outer. Generally speaking, effective dark seduction manifests as an external expression of an internal state, communicated through words and actions. This chapter delves into the specific aspects of dark seduction that belong to the inner and outer categories. You'll discover that to be truly effective in dark seduction, one must integrate both aspects. Strategies for developing various facets of inner and outer seduction will be offered. This chapter is vital reading for anyone looking to enhance their seductive skills or gain insight into the seductive techniques of others. Understanding the duality of inner and outer seduction represents an advanced level of knowledge that distinguishes you from most people's perceptions in this area of life. As you engage with this chapter and the rest of the book, remember this crucial formula that encapsulates dark seduction. Dark seduction is the outward expression of the inner state. Inner dark seduction. Let's now investigate the fundamental components of the inner aspect of dark seduction. The depth of exploration for each component here will vary depending on how thoroughly it is examined in other parts of the book. Values. Values serve as the internal compass guiding individuals in their decision-making. For instance, a person's career choice is frequently influenced by their core values. Someone who prioritizes patriotism may gravitate towards roles that allow them to contribute positively to their country, such as military service or a political position. Conversely, an individual who values financial prosperity may pursue a career that promises substantial earnings, even if it compromises work-life balance. Values significantly shape the inner fabric of dark seduction. A person who pursues dark seduction typically values the pursuit of their desires and a life rich in sexual experiences over conformity to mainstream societal norms. While the specific values associated with dark seduction can differ from person to person, they generally encompass sexual freedom, moral autonomy, and nonconformity. Dark seducers often prioritize results over the methods to achieve them, although many are equally captivated by the seductive process as they are by its outcomes. Beliefs. Beliefs represent the unique ways in which values manifest in an individual's life. For example, if a person values sexual freedom, they might believe that investing time in meeting new potential partners is worthwhile. Someone who has successfully navigated the world of seduction may hold the belief that they can attract their desired seduction targets. One significant barrier many encounter in the realm of seduction and romance is the presence of limiting beliefs. These are perspectives that hinder individuals from pursuing their true desires. A common illustration of limiting beliefs can be seen in a situation at a bar. Imagine someone at a bar who sees someone they are attracted to. This attraction is an instinctive response rather than a conscious decision. This person may engage in an internal debate: should they take the risk to approach the attractive individual or opt to remain in their comfort zone? Here, their beliefs, whether limiting or empowering, come into play. Someone with limiting beliefs will find numerous reasons to shy away from pursuing the person they are attracted to. Common limiting beliefs include thoughts like, "That person would never be interested in someone like me," or "I've faced rejection before, so I'll just face it again," or "Someone like that is almost certainly already in a relationship." In contrast, a dark seducer possesses empowering beliefs that encourage them to pursue their desires. A seasoned seducer might believe that the cost of inaction is greater than the sting of rejection, or that nothing detrimental can arise from making an approach, while remaining passive is inherently a missed opportunity. The beliefs held by dark seducers empower them, enhancing their chances of success in the seductive journey. How does a dark seducer cultivate empowering beliefs? Reference experiences. Reference experiences are the life events we draw upon when shaping our beliefs and making decisions. For instance, someone who fears rejection when approaching an attractive person in public might feel this way due to having few experiences with such interactions, or none at all, leading their mind to anticipate the worst outcomes. Conversely, a dark seducer possesses a repertoire of experiences that demonstrate their ability to succeed and find pleasure in seducing strangers. To effectively build these reference experiences, the seducer must actively seek out situations that will bolster their confidence and future aspirations. They need to engage with these experiences, learn from them, and derive the necessary insights to accomplish their goals. At the outset of their seductive journey, novice seducers may need to consciously remind themselves of past positive reference experiences to empower their mindset. For example, they might think, "I have succeeded in this before, so I can do it again." In contrast, more experienced seducers have these reassurances ingrained within them, embedded in their identity and behavior. Presence. Presence refers to a seducer's ability to quiet their internal dialogue and immerse themselves fully in the current moment. Many individuals are often consumed by their own thoughts, doubts, and feelings, creating a psychological distraction that hinders their effectiveness. It becomes challenging to engage in the present when one is fixated on past events or apprehensive about potential future outcomes. Presence enhances a seducer's efficacy by enabling them to focus entirely on their interaction with the target of their seduction. Since it is uncommon for someone to be the exclusive focus of another person's attention, this experience can be profoundly impactful when it does occur. The distinctive eye contact of a dark seducer reflects their inner presence. It is intense yet not aggressive, reminiscent of the smoldering gazes often portrayed in advertising. This gaze represents a calm confidence and internal steadiness. To cultivate presence, dark seducers may practice meditation and adopt habits that promote focus and minimize distractions, making these routines an integral part of their lives. Many effective members of the pickup artist community are known for their commitment to meditation and learning from presence experts like Eckhart Tolle. Physical self-mastery. The final key element in dark seduction is physical self-mastery. This encompasses how seducers manage their physical condition to optimize their chances of success in seduction. It may involve maintaining an ideal diet and sleep routine to boost testosterone levels and sustain high energy. Additionally, engaging in exercises that enhance physical attractiveness and sexual performance can be part of this mastery. Notably, effective seducers do not rely on alcohol or other substances, which many people use to feel confident and unreserved during seductive pursuits. Instead, they cultivate their self-confidence, vitality, and expressiveness from within, eschewing external aids. Mastering their physical state is critical in supporting their seduction efforts. Outer dark seduction. While we have explored the important internal elements of a successful seducer, effective seduction also relies on external expression. Think of the internal components as the fuel and the external aspects as the motion. A dark seducer is driven by powerful beliefs, values, and the capability to be present. These inner qualities form the foundation that fuels their words, actions, and overall presence. Some seducers may achieve favorable outcomes by focusing solely on external factors. Sometimes, simply saying and doing the right things is enough to entice someone. However, this approach is akin to an unattractive person using heavy makeup to appear presentable. While it may work occasionally, the underlying truth cannot remain hidden indefinitely. Therefore, the most effective seducers balance both the internal and external dimensions of their seduction strategy, recognizing that success in one is deeply intertwined with the other. This chapter will briefly outline the three primary outer aspects of dark seduction, which will be examined in greater detail in subsequent chapters. These foundational concepts will serve as a framework to guide you through the book's progression. Words. Words can refer to what a seducer communicates verbally or in writing. While the choice of words is significant, the underlying communication is even more critical. Take a simple greeting like "hello," its meaning can vary dramatically based on delivery, ranging from shyness to an immediate sexual desire. Factors such as tone of voice, speech pace, and alignment with body language are essential elements of dark seduction. Understanding the significance of how words are conveyed, rather than merely which words are used, distinguishes dark seducers from most individuals. Many people think that using clever pickup lines or a specific combination of phrases will secure interest, but in reality, skilled dark seducers wield words akin to comedians. A comedian's success lies in their delivery. The same words can elicit laughter or fall flat depending on how they are presented. Similarly, a dark seducer can formulate the perfect verbal script, but without the right delivery, those words lose their power. Actions. Actions encompass all physical behaviors a dark seducer employs to engage their target. These can range from subtle body language and posture to tactile interactions and more intimate physical contact. The importance of action in dark seduction stems from the distinction between friendly exchanges and sexual encounters, with touch being a crucial differentiator. Many who lack knowledge of dark seduction struggle with the nuances of touch. For instance, an inexperienced individual may either mishandle touch awkwardly or refrain from it entirely. Those who muster the courage to approach an attractive stranger often engage in conversation for too long, causing initial interest to wane and ultimately resulting in the other person seeking an exit. So what prevents people from incorporating touch in their seductive pursuits? Fear. Many individuals find comfort in a pleasant chat and hesitate to escalate the interaction, risking greater vulnerability. Conversely, some may misuse touch clumsily or aggressively, resulting from their own anxiety, which leads to awkwardness and ultimately repels the target. A dark seducer adeptly navigates touch by gauging the appropriate levels of intimacy at any moment. They might begin with a light, unobtrusive touch on a safe area, like the arm. If met with resistance, they adjust their approach, but if the response is positive, they gradually increase their level of touch, continuously testing the boundaries of their target's comfort. Moreover, a dark seducer's use of touch appears smooth and instinctive rather than awkward. This proficiency often comes from extensive experience, making the act of initiating touch feel second nature. They are also likely to possess a wealth of positive past experiences with touch, bolstering their confidence in the present moment. Appearance. The final outer aspect of dark seduction which will be outlined here is the physical appearance of the seducer. Dark seducers are able to use their appearance in a way which allows them to have the best chance of seducing their target. There are some general principles behind the way in which dark seducers choose to appear, and some specific schools of thought which dark seducers often adhere to. Broadly speaking, dark seducers tend to dress in either one of two ways, to fit in visually or to stand out visually. Either is likely to be a conscious choice. For example, to fit in, a dark seducer is likely to wear clothes that allows them to go under the radar in their environment. This will basically involve dressing appropriately for the environment in which they wish to pursue their seduction, casual in a rock bar, smarter in a cocktail lounge, for example. This basically takes their appearance out of the equation and lets their physical and verbal game do the talking instead. Many seducers will often take the normal plus one philosophy to dressing. This involves dressing appropriately for the environment, but then enhancing one aspect. For example, if everyone is wearing a suit, the seducer will too, but they may have an interesting pocket square or badge, whereas no one else does. The other way a seducer may choose to dress is to stand out, in a good way. You may have heard of this old-school concept as peacocking or some other variation of this term. It basically stems from the theory that standing out is a positive thing in terms of attraction. It allows the seducer to differentiate themselves from others, and lets people who are interested in them have something to comment on and touch during an interaction. Peacocking, or dressing to stand out, is a double-edged sword. It can work really well, but only if the seducer has their inner aspects handled. Basically, dressing to stand out requires self-confidence and belief. If a seducer has the positive self-image needed to pull off an extravagant outfit, they will do so. If a seducer lacks this, however, then they will be unable to act in a way which is congruent with what they wear. The object of their seduction is likely to see through their charade in a heartbeat and reject them. Two sides of the same coin. This chapter has shown you that dark seduction is equally a set of internal aspects and the way in which these aspects are expressed outwardly. You now know that a seducer needs to have both handled in equal measure in order to be truly effective. Now that you understand what dark seduction is, why dark seducers do what they do, and the inner and outer aspects of the seductive equation, read on. It is time to go in depth about specific aspects of dark seduction, starting with the initial approach or icebreaker. Chapter 5, The Approach. In the previous chapters, we have explored the core concepts of dark seduction and its practitioners. Now, it's time to focus on key elements of this intriguing art form, starting with the approach. An approach refers to the method a seducer uses to move from not engaging with someone to initiating interaction. This chapter will delve into various openers employed by seducers to kick off the seductive process. We will discuss why each method is effective and the potential risks associated with it, providing real-life examples wherever applicable. For anyone studying dark seduction, it is crucial to strike a balance in appreciating the significance of the approach. Being the first step in any interaction, the approach can sometimes be given undue emphasis by those learning about dark seduction. Some individuals become fixated on finding the perfect approach, overlooking the fact that its primary role is simply to initiate the longer seduction journey. Newcomers may confuse the approach with the entirety of seduction rather than recognizing it as merely the beginning. Conversely, it is equally important to avoid downplaying the approach by assuming that any method will suffice. While it's true that many different techniques can succeed in sparking an interaction, certain approaches are better suited for specific contexts than others. Undermining the importance of using the right approach can jeopardize the potential for a successful seduction altogether. Types of approach: direct and indirect. Largely speaking, the two main types of approaches which can be used in the pursuit of seduction are direct and indirect. The key difference between the two is a direct approach conveys, to one extent or another, the fact that the seducer has some kind of attraction or interest in their target. An indirect approach, on the other hand, is intended to go under the radar and allow the seducer to begin an interaction without showing their hand, so to speak. Both types of approach can work, as long as the seducer knows how, and when, to effectively use them. An example of a direct approach would be walking up to a stranger and saying something like, "Hi, you looked interesting, so I had to come and introduce myself." The seducer has shown mild interest in their target by doing this but hasn't put themselves out there too much. "You looked interesting" conveys a small amount of interest but still leaves some ambiguity as to the seducer's true intentions. Direct approaches can be very direct. For example, "You look sexy as fuck tonight, what's your name?" This is a very high-risk, high-reward approach to take. On the one hand, a lot of people will be put off by the bluntness of the approach. On the other, some people will respond well to the directness, and will stay in the interaction. If people choose to remain in an interaction following a very direct approach, it is a good sign that they will be interested in taking things further. All of the cards are already on the table. A very direct approach can therefore be used as a way for the seducer to save time by removing any pretense from the interaction. Direct approaches require a strong level of inner game on behalf of the seducer. There is nothing more incongruent, and therefore off-putting, as when a seducer chooses to say something direct, but does so in a tone of voice or with body language that conveys they do not really believe what they are saying. Direct approaches can and should only be used effectively by seducers who have their inner game handled to a high level in terms of beliefs, reference experiences, etc. The fastest way to get rejected is to try a direct approach without having the internal aspects of seduction handled. An indirect approach is any verbal opener which does not show interest straight away. A common but incorrect belief about indirect and direct openers is that some types of opener are always direct whereas some are always indirect. This is rarely the case. For example, a question like, "Did you see the guy with the top hat earlier?" may seem to be indirect. After all, it is an innocent enough question. However, depending upon the tone of voice it is delivered in, the eye contact of the seducer, their body language and so forth, this type of opener could be either direct or indirect. Indirect approaches are a wise choice when it is felt, due to either a seducer's reading of their target, or due to the seducer's own internal state at the time, that a target would be put off by a direct approach. Perhaps it is relatively early in the evening, perhaps the seducer is looking to get into a more social state of mind before going direct, perhaps the target is with her friends and would respond badly to a direct opener through fear of social pressure and being judged. Whatever the reason, an indirect opener bestows the benefit of allowing an interaction to begin from a neutral, rather than an interested standpoint. The downside to choosing to use an indirect opener is that it can waste the time of both the seducer and the target. Sometimes, a target will be perfectly willing to respond in a friendly way to an indirect opener, but will respond badly when the seducer attempts to move the interaction in a more intimate direction. Due to this, if a seducer chooses to use an indirect opener, they need to be attuned to the responses they are getting in order to gauge whether there is the potential to generate sexual chemistry with the target, or whether they are not in that state of mind, and are therefore a waste of time. Situational. Situational openers are a type of verbal opener which makes reference to the situation in which the seducer and the target find themselves. An example would be a comment on the venue, the time of year, someone or something that is happening in the venue, or any other reference to the shared present moment. Some examples include, "Why is it so boring here tonight? Is this the best this town has to offer?" Or, "Why is the DJ brain dead?" Anything which makes reference to the present situation is a form of situational opener. Most of the time, situational openers tend to be indirect. It is possible to turn them direct by mixing some intent, a sign of interest, into either the verbal or nonverbal content of the situational opener. For example, by saying, "What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this?" is a way to make a situational opener slightly direct. Alternatively, it is possible to make a situational opener direct by entirely nonverbal means, such as by saying, "The music here is epic," but in a tone of voice and with eye contact that shows sexual intent. Some of the advantages to using a situational opener include it creates a sense of shared reality between the seducer and the target. For example, if a girl looks bored or excited, the situational opener can be tweaked to create a sense of instant rapport between target and seducer. Alternatively, the situational opener can be used to challenge or even tease the target, as this can be a good way of generating some friction, tension, and attraction. Situational openers are also good insofar as they don't allow for harsh, personal rejections most of the time. A situation is fairly safe territory. It is difficult for a target to respond excessively badly to a situational opener. The advantages of situational openers are also their downsides. Just as a situational opener is unlikely to result in a harsh rejection, it is also somewhat unlikely to result in a great positive response. Situational openers are also often used by people who are not skilled in the art of seduction. To be used effectively by dark seducers, they must therefore be delivered in a way which is in accordance with the other concepts of dark seduction, or used as a fleeting icebreaker which the dark seducer then moves on from, proceeding to later aspects of the seductive process. Functional. Functional openers are rarely if ever used by dark seducers. They are included here as an example of how average people choose to approach a seductive encounter, something dark seducers certainly are not. However, like almost every rule, functional openers can be used in an unconventional, effective way by dark seducers. This will also be shown here. What exactly is a functional opener? It is a way of starting a conversation which focuses on a function or action other than the conversation itself. For example, asking for the time, a cigarette lighter, or directions is a functional opener. Many people who do not have knowledge of seduction use this type of opener and then magically assume the interaction will proceed, of its own accord, into more seductive territory. This is far from the case. The one way in which a dark seducer might, rarely, choose to use a functional opener is a way of almost planting a seed in a target's mind. They may open them functionally, but do so with enough subcommunication, in terms of tone of voice or eye contact, to spark some interest or intrigue in the target's mind. The seducer's purpose is to elicit a response of curiosity from their target, which the seducer is able to instantly and accurately deduce. If a dark seducer does this well, they may, for example, ask their target for a lighter, use it, and then walk off. In that time, however, they have judged their target's initial interest levels, and can leave with the thought of, "They are interested, I can always come back to them later." Opinion. The opinion opener is a style of opener popularized in the seduction text, The Game. It is almost a cliché at this point and is rarely if ever used in an unironic way by actual seducers. Don't discount it fully, however. An opinion opener can still work, and is a good way of helping someone gain the initial reference experiences they need to get good at seduction, and move on to riskier and more complex types of openers. The opinion opener basically revolves around asking a stranger for their opinion on a subject, usually under the pretext of solving some kind of debate or conversation a group of friends have been having. Some classic examples include, "I need an opinion on something. Who would win in a fight, Superman or Batman?" Or, "I need a quick opinion to settle an argument with my friends over there. Why are older men often seen as attractive?" The opinion opener is intended to be neutral and not convey any particular interest on behalf of the seducer, and also panders to the ego of most people who want to feel as if their views and ideas matter. Sometimes, seducers will use opinion openers in a way which is modified to their target. For example, if their target appears to be into rock music, the seducer may ask for an opinion related to this area. This builds a sense of rapport and commonality between seducer and target. As stated, the popularity of opinion openers reached such a prevalence that many targets will recognize an opinion opener as a kind of prepackaged pickup line and find it stupid and unimaginative. If you are approached by someone asking for your opinion, you are almost certainly dealing with someone who is attempting a seduction. If, on the other hand, you want to try out this type of opener, be sure to be original and switch your wording up. Don't ask for an opinion, instead say something like, "Help me out," or "What do you think about this?" Don't ask for some pre-made topic you read in a book or online, create your own topics to talk about. Physical openers are about the most direct, most advanced and most risky type of approach there is. Opening physically is not usually suggested for someone starting out in the field of seduction. There are different types of ways to open a target physically, and each has a slightly different set of purposes behind it, and a different way of being carried out. The most direct way of opening physically is to extend your hand towards the target, and then sort of firmly but smoothly pull them towards you. This needs to be done in a very calm, non-threatening but certain way that conveys supreme confidence. If this is done from a place of nerves or lack of confidence, it will fail 100% of the time. For this reason, only the more advanced and confident seducers tend to open in this way. A safer, less intense version of the physical open is the high five. This should be delivered in a fun, playful way. Often, the seducer will high-five their target and then clasp their hand and attempt to briefly hold hands. This can be a good way of judging right away how comfortable the target is with physical contact. The key mistake a seducer tends to make with this high-five physical open is to get angry or hurt if it doesn't work as intended. As explained in earlier chapters, a seducer always needs to keep calm and carry on, no matter what. Whenever a target doesn't react as intended, just move on like it didn't happen. Always be cool. Silent. The silent opener is almost a gimmick that advanced seducers sometimes carry out purely to show they are able to. It is not widely used. A silent open basically involves initiating contact and creating intrigue through just gesture, eye contact, and touch. There are videos in circulation of this type of open working well. Indeed, skilled seducers are able to proceed from an open to a kiss without saying a word. The silent opener is not intended to become a widely used part of the toolkit of most seducers. Instead, it shows the power of nonverbal seduction. Seeing this in action, either online or in person, is a great way to really grasp the power of not using words in pursuit of seduction. Breaking black ice. The ultimate key to approaching an opening is to never lose sight of its purpose, to initiate an interaction. If the seducer is able to generate some measure of excitement, arousal, or intrigue by using their opener, this is an added bonus. However, for an opener to be effective, it simply needs to set the stage for a longer interaction to continue subsequently. As a seducer gains more experience in carrying out seductive interactions, they will gain a feel for different types of openers, when and how to use them, and the ways in which they should be carried out and the times they are best suited to. The knowledge in this chapter can be used as either a training manual for seducers or as a means for recognizing when an attempted seduction is being carried out on you. As stated at the start of the chapter, focusing too much on the approach is a key mistake. Think of seduction as being like a movie. The opening scene is cool and important, but you don't walk out after it. It is merely the start. Read on to experience the rest of the dark seductive journey. Next stop, creating emotional chaos. Chapter 6, Cultivating Emotional Turmoil. In the previous chapter, we explored the beginnings of a darkly seductive encounter. Now, we delve into a crucial element that permeates every phase of seduction, the manipulation and mastery of the target's emotions. We will discover how a seducer views emotions as malleable, akin to clay or another artistic medium, which can be shaped to craft their seductive strategy. This chapter will investigate the specific methods through which emotions can be influenced, comprehended, and skillfully manipulated. The insights contained within these pages are immensely powerful. Like all potent knowledge, the responsibility of how to utilize it rests with you. Whether you choose to wield it as a protective barrier or as a means to achieve your desires, this decision is yours to make. The significance of emotions. At their core, humans are driven more by emotion than logic, especially in the realms of seduction and romance. As the well-known saying goes, attraction is not a choice. Feelings of desire and arousal arise involuntarily in response to external stimuli. Thus, the ability to shape and manipulate a target's emotions is an essential tool in a seducer's repertoire. People are often seeking stimulation. Why else would they flock to vibrant social spaces like nightclubs and bars? Many are searching for a break from the monotony of daily life, feeling unsatisfied in some aspect or another. Some individuals might be trying to escape deeper issues, such as dissatisfaction with their life's direction or their self-image. Others may simply crave distraction. Regardless, many individuals possess some emotional void or need that a skilled seducer can fill. A classic perspective on seduction suggests that a seducer can transform into whatever is needed at a particular moment in the target's life. This adaptability, particularly in the realm of dark seduction, enables one to become a chameleon, shifting one's identity and personality to suit the demands of the moment. While a later chapter will delve into the concept of the seductive shadow in depth, it's crucial to recognize its existence at this stage. Another reason effective seducers prioritize emotions lies in the fact that people often allow their feelings to override rational thought. In the heat of the moment, individuals might engage in actions contrary to their logical reasoning simply because it feels right. Seducers can leverage intense emotional experiences to convince targets to act in ways they otherwise might not if solely guided by reason. A seducer who can accurately comprehend the emotions of their target gains a significant advantage over 99% of their competition. Most individuals struggle to understand or articulate their own emotions, frequently feeling overwhelmed and detached from their true thoughts and feelings. When someone seems to have a deeper insight into their emotions, essentially becoming an effective dark seducer, they become incredibly alluring and difficult to resist. Emotional spikes. With the previous concept of people desiring an emotional experience and trying to escape emotional mundaneness in mind, let's examine the concept of emotional spikes. Picture a graph with two axes. The horizontal axis represents the zero, neutral point of emotional experience. Most people's emotions sit in or around this level. Throughout the course of a typical day, people's emotional graphs may move slightly into above or below the horizontal axis. Moving above represents positive emotions, below, negative emotions. It is rare that people experience any strong emotion in the course of their average day. A dark seducer making use of emotional mastery understands the value in spiking a person's emotional graph, either positively or negatively. By triggering either an unusually positive or an unusually negative emotion, the seducer is instantly able to take the target outside the boundaries of their everyday existence. If, for example, the seducer is able to cause a strong negative or positive feeling, they are likely to stand out in the target's mind as someone who is not of the ordinary. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Any strong emotional spike makes a seducer stand out, as discussed. The skilled seducer is aware that they cannot allow a target's emotional state to remain static or just move in one direction. Instead, the skilled dark seducer aims to alternate strong positive or negative emotion sequentially. Consider the following verbal opener. You're absolutely beautiful, if not a little unimaginative. This alternating positive and negative emotional statement is likely to spike the target's emotional graph upwards and then rapidly downwards. This strong alternating feeling is likely to cause confusion, attraction, and intrigue in the target. Whatever they feel, they won't feel bored. By simply making them feel not one but two strong emotions outside of their normal reality, the seducer is instantly valuable to the target. He has distracted them from their usual comfort zone, and people are always attracted to this, whether they want to be or not. Skilled seducers know the right amount to spike a target's emotional graph. Too much is overload while too little is underkill. The best seducers are able to mix in what seems to be fairly regular conversation, in order to build comfort and familiarity, with a mixture of positive and negative emotional spikes, in order to build deep, irrational, emotional attraction. Many dark seducers take the approach of starting off with smaller spikes and then pushing things further as the interaction develops. Consider this in terms of a movie. Imagine the start of a movie featured a mixture of amazing action scenes, positive emotional spikes, and gut-wrenching emotional scenes, negative emotional spikes. Imagine if after 10 minutes this movie stopped this type of content and instead became mundane. Viewers would lose interest rapidly. Seduction is no different. Experienced seducers know they must spread their emotional spikes over the course of an interaction to avoid becoming a movie which entertains at the start and bores at the end. Ideally, the intensity of the emotional spikes caused by the seducer should increase in intensity until building to a clear climax, such as going home together for sex or securing a phone number through which to carry on an interaction at a later date. One of the most extreme, hard-to-pull-off uses of the emotional spike concept is an extreme emotional spike opener. This is associated with some of the most notorious names in the seduction community. It basically involves causing a severe positive and negative spike in quick succession, but as an opener. The language and tonality of these openers is absolutely extreme and not for the faint of heart. An example would be, "You disgusting creature, I love you, come here." 90% of seducers cannot pull this technique off effectively and shouldn't try. For those who can, and there is video proof if you need it, the results are amazing. From the initial stages of an interaction, the target's adrenaline is flowing, heart is pumping, and their emotional intensity is running at a high level. This effectively melts the target's logic and puts them in an emotional dream world for the rest of the interaction. The methods. So far, this chapter has dealt with the way in which emotions are used as part of an effective seductive arsenal, and looked at a way of envisioning a target's emotions as a graph, and how a seducer should aim to spike the graph positively and negatively as required at different points. Some of the ways in which positive and negative spikes can be created will now be explored and explained. Challenging. Challenging is a way to create a mild negative emotional spike, a little bit of tension or intrigue which can help spice up an interaction and keep its emotional tone interesting. A challenge can be very mild and subtle or more overt. Let's look at some examples of both ends of the spectrum. Skilled seducers can be very subtly challenging. For example, if a target is talking about their career, interests, or hobbies, a seducer may slightly raise an eyebrow and say, "interesting," in a tone of voice which has a slight hint of disapproval. This can cause a target to chase the approval of the seducer, giving power to the seducer and betraying the interest of the target in being seduced. Challenges can also be used in a more strong, overt way. This is often deployed by a seducer as a means of determining whether a target will chase their approval or whether they are confident in who they are, allowing the seducer to adjust the type of seduction they pursue as a result. For example, if a target states an opinion about something, the seducer may say something like, "Actually, you're wrong, that's not a good band/color/restaurant/degree/anything." Some targets will respond with, "Yeah, you're right, I don't actually like it that much." This shows they are insecure and crave the seducer's approval. The seducer will then capitalize on this knowledge in their pursuit of emotional manipulation over the remaining course of the interaction. Interest and disinterest. Alternating interest and disinterest is a way in which a seducer is able to keep a target invested in an interaction and provide them with positive and negative emotional spikes. When some newcomer seducers hear that interest and disinterest should be alternated, they fall into the trap of doing so mechanically, e.g. one comment of interest, followed by one comment of disinterest, followed by one comment of interest, and so forth. This is a huge, huge mistake. Instead, alternative interest and disinterest should be used organically, creatively, and playfully. There is no mechanical, magical formula or ratio a seducer should follow. Instead, they should feel free to alternate as and when they see it. Regardless of the frequency of interest and disinterest, the purpose is always the same, to keep a target's attention. Consider the alternative to this technique. If a seducer shows only disinterest, the target will become bored and will seek to leave the interaction. If the seducer shows only interest, the target will become uninspired and uninterested. At its core, seduction is the process of making the target feel as if they have earned the approval of the seducer. It is a lot more appealing and enjoyable for a target if they are able to feel as if they have really, genuinely impressed the seducer. Skilled seducers know this, and are able to create a genuine roller coaster ride through their use of interest and disinterest, approval and disapproval. Failure to alternate interest and disinterest in an effective way is one of the main reasons why a lot of seducers end up falling into the friend zone. If they are consistently nice and positive and interested, the target ends up taking them for granted. It is boring. There is no challenge, nothing special. The target does not feel the seducer is high status or discerning, they are not a prize. This goes against mainstream thinking but also explains the common complaint of men that women always go for the douchebags, they never go for nice guys like me. Nice guys finish last, because nice guys are insufferably dull. Be interesting. You owe it to yourself and to your target. The mundane and the magical. Think about an epic piece of music, perhaps a metal classic with an awesome guitar solo somewhere in the song. What makes such a song so great? It is because it knows how to mix in the spectacular with the standard. If the entire song consisted of a series of epic guitar solos and nothing else, it would sound ridiculous. Similarly, think of a gourmet meal. It might feature an epic, indulgent, elaborate dessert. But are all the courses of this nature? No. If they were, it would be over the top. Too much. No one would want to eat a meal like this. These analogies directly describe a major mistake a lot of seducers make, trying to do too much. A lot of seducers operate under the false belief that they have to put on a show from the word go until their target is in bed. They are always trying to say the perfect, witty thing or run game according to some strange, fantastical blueprint they have developed in their mind. This is such a mistake, for more than one reason. First of all, behavior like this comes across as trying hard and is always a turnoff for the target. Second, game is not something showy or spectacular. As discussed earlier, the best seducers seduce in a way which is not obviously anything to observers. It is subtle and hard to pinpoint. Trying to do too much is a huge mistake to be avoided at all costs. Alternatively, some seducers make the mistake of playing it safe and doing too little. Like almost every aspect of dark seduction, this is something that must be understood and known through experience as opposed to simply through knowledge. Having the proper knowledge is an essential starting point, but putting it into action, and witnessing the ideas firsthand, is vital to build the reference experiences that were earlier stated to be a vital component of inner seduction. Ideally, the experienced seducer will carry out their seductive process pursuing two aims at the same time. First, they will be trying to create a sense of connection and comfort with their target. This is achieved through the mundane, the sharing of factual experiences, information about each other's lives and other similar topics of rapport-building chat. This, on its own, will lead to a friendly connection and nothing more. Instead, a good seducer needs to use the magical as a spice to vary the mundane. These are the emotional gambits, discussed above and elsewhere, that are able to create intense emotions that stem beyond comfort and rapport, and instead make a target feel a strong sense of attraction as well. When there is both attraction and comfort, physical seduction can then take place. The mundane and the magical must be deployed properly in order to achieve this eventual aim. Reading the emotional matrix. So far, this chapter has focused on the general theory behind the emotional element of dark seduction, and then looked at specific ways in which a target's emotions can be influenced by a seducer, and the right way to do this. It is important to understand that the influential aspect of emotion is only one component. It is vital to have a strong analytic component as well. When a lot of seducers are starting out, they make the error of thinking only in terms of what they want to do, not what the target needs to happen. This may sound like a strange distinction, but it is a vital one. It is important for a dark seducer to be like water, able to change shape, form, and direction in response to what is in front of it. Let's compare two examples in order to show how some seducers are able to vary their approach and some are not. Some seducers, often newcomers, but many times experienced seducers who have not made proper progress in their pursuit of the seductive art form, think only in terms of their own intentions. For example, their thought process during a seductive interaction would be something like, I want to spike their emotions positive, now negative, now I want to show disinterest, now I want to get physical. Their thoughts are only on what they want to do, without any thought to their target in the moment. Better seducers think not in terms of, what do I want to do, but in terms of, what needs to be done. They are like experienced chess players who are able to read the best move based on the situation in any given moment. Through experience, and countless reference experiences, elite dark seducers will always know when it is time to spike positive, and when it is time to spike negative. They know the exact emotional response they need to get to move the interaction forward, and the verbal or physical move in their repertoire that is most likely to cause such a response. Order from chaos. As this chapter has shown, the importance of emotional manipulation and influence cannot be overstated in the realm of dark seduction. Next, we will explore the verbal methods by which seducers influence their target in great depth. When reading the next chapter, try and relate it in your mind back to the contents of this chapter. Don't think of verbal seduction as an isolated idea, rather as a means to influencing emotion in the way described in this section of the book. Chapter 7: The Power of Dark Verbal Energy. When wielded by a dark seducer, words carry an extraordinary influence and effect that surpasses their usual power. Picture a dark seducer as a virtuoso musician. They utilize the same words as everyone else, just as a master instrumentalist plays the same notes on their instrument. The difference lies not in the tools themselves, but in the skill and artistry of the person manipulating them. As noted earlier in this book, words are a crucial component of dark seduction. This chapter delves deeper into the art of verbal game, showcasing the techniques employed by some of the world's most legendary seducers. You will gain insights not only into what works but, more importantly, into why it is effective. The principles and strategies discussed here extend beyond mere seduction. By paying close attention to the content of this chapter and implementing its ideas, you will find advantages in various aspects of life, not just in romantic pursuits. Whether you choose to apply these verbal strategies for your benefit or remain vigilant against others who may use them against you is entirely your decision. The information presented in this chapter is immensely powerful. If you opt to utilize these techniques, proceed with caution and care. They are highly effective, and many individuals find themselves facing unexpected consequences when employing them. Consider yourself warned. The fundamentals of dark seduction language. Before diving into the specific verbal techniques employed in dark seduction, it's essential to understand how these methods differ from the approaches used by mainstream seducers and those lacking an understanding of dark seductive principles. Many individuals recognize the significant power of words in attracting potential partners yet lack a true understanding of why certain verbal strategies are effective. Consequently, they accept ideas on faith or trust rather than seeking concrete evidence of their efficacy. This reliance on assumption can be perilous and should be avoided. A fundamental principle at the heart of dark seduction is to test everything. Never take for granted that a technique will be effective until you've tried it yourself. Don't assume that what works for others will necessarily work for you. Additionally, it's crucial not to confuse mere intellectual comprehension with true understanding. Simply reading about a technique doesn't equate to knowing it. You must experience it firsthand in the moment and observe its impact for yourself. Until you do, you won't grasp its true essence. Another key distinction between dark seduction and conventional seductive language is the intention behind the words. Many people use seductive language for the love of the art itself, as seen in classic gestures like writing love songs or letters. Often, these cliched displays are performed for the speaker's own benefit, believing that the words hold intrinsic value. This is a misconception. In contrast, dark seducers recognize that words are just combinations of letters and symbols. Their importance lies not in the words themselves but in the psychological and emotional effects they evoke in others. To dark seducers, words are mere tools devoid of meaning unless they elicit a response. This perspective is crucial to the philosophy of dark seduction. This understanding allows practitioners to embrace a wide range of language, liberated from the constraints of traditional thought. The goal is to use whatever words effectively lead to desired outcomes, with the focus on the reactions they generate. Consider words as food, which serve specific purposes: nourishment, satisfaction, or enjoyment. Just as people often hold onto arbitrary notions about proper foods, many mistakenly believe there's a right or wrong way to engage in verbal seduction. In reality, the distinction lies solely in what is effective versus ineffective. Desiring seduction to conform to a specific ideal reflects a naive and idealistic perspective. With this understanding of dark seduction's approach to language established, let's examine the specific ways in which language can be harnessed to achieve seductive success. 26 letters, infinite approaches. The flexibility and freedom that dark seduction grants the seductive linguist has been clearly stated. This is essential to keep in mind when reading these techniques. Some newcomers to the world of dark seduction get stuck in the trap of assuming that fixed techniques actually matter in and of themselves. They don't. They are just means to an end. If the following techniques work for you, great. Use them. If they don't, modify them. Adapt them. Find something that does work. The technique is not important. The outcome is all that matters. Magic names. Finding a magic, special name to call a seductive target is a powerful verbal hallmark of many great seducers. To illustrate this concept, think back through one of two examples: your own life, or many of the great works of film or literature you have ever enjoyed. How often did someone special, either in your own life or in a film you love, have a nickname for someone that was close to them? A special name that was shared only between those two people and no one else. You can make use of this concept to create a special bond between yourself and a seduction target within a short time of meeting them. The difference between a skilled seducer and an average seducer reading about this technique is as follows. An average seducer will read that coming up with a special nickname for a target is powerful, and then will proceed to give them any old name, thinking a name alone is enough. A skillful seducer will go further and use this technique in a refined form. So what is this advanced level of application? The best seducers don't just give their targets a special pet nickname, they give them one that really counts. This can have a variety of logic underpinning it. One option is to choose a nickname about something the target is playfully insecure about. For example, if they have freckles, call them Freckles. If they stammered when you spoke to them, call them Stutters. Note, this should be done in a playful, teasing way, as opposed to a cruel name. Another option is to create a name based around a private in-joke you and your target have shared. By using such a name, it creates a feeling of bond and a special, us against the world, perspective for you and your target. A final note on magic names: don't overuse them. Don't refer to the name in every text message and every time you see them. Use the name sparingly. Whenever you use it, it should produce a good reaction. If a name seems to be losing its power, drop it. Trying to force this verbal technique, or any other, is a fast way to seem socially inept and lose any attraction you have managed to create with your target. Callback humor. This is a seductive technique lifted straight from the world of stand-up comedy. It basically involves taking one reference or idea that you and your target found funny together, and then sprinkling it back into the conversation now and then, in order to retrigger the feeling of humor and closeness you shared. For example, if something amusing happened to the two of you in a particular venue, you might say something in the future like, "It's a shame we're not at X venue." Or, if your target mispronounces something, you can refer to their mispronunciation in a deadpan way in the future. Like any of the verbal techniques here, use callback humor sparingly. Trying to overuse something will come across as phony, fake, and a turnoff. It should also be something that produced a genuine, honest reaction of humor in your target, not something they politely pretended to find funny for the sake of appeasing you. Their secret words. Every individual walking this planet has their own background with relation to language. Words they use at different times and in different ways. This can be shown through a really simple example. Think of a simple word like great. One person may only use it sincerely. When they say great, they truly feel positively about something. Another person may exclusively use great to show sarcasm, disdain, or bitter feeling. The point is that different people can use the same word in a variety of different ways. When interacting with a target, it is vital for a dark seducer to figure out exactly the way in which a target is using words. This analytical ability is a key part of verbal game. Over time, dark seducers will notice a consistent pattern emerging. Everyone they interact with will have a few words in their vocabulary which appear to have special significance for them. People usually use these out of habit and are not aware they are doing it. For example, a person may use the word epic regularly, but only when they are truly in a state of peak happiness. The best dark seducers are able to pick up on these secret words and then use them to create a sense of connection and similarity with their target. Of all the verbal techniques in this chapter, this is the one to use most sparingly. It is the most obviously manipulative, and if the target is aware it is being carried out, it will often instantly break the spell the seducer has created. When done subtly and infrequently, however, it can really create a deep level of verbal influence between the seducer and their target. Beyond words. The core message of this chapter has been consistently stated: words don't matter, their meaning and impact does. One of the key ways of influencing the impact of words is by modifying the way in which they are spoken or written. The emotion and intent behind words is equally as important as the words themselves. For example, depending on how it is said, the phrase "fuck off" can mean anything from "I hate you" to "I playfully am having fun with you." Dark seducers are always careful to say things in an effective way, as a result of this. One of the things that sets dark seducers apart from other people is their ability to speak in a measured way which is almost hypnotic to listen to. Words are likely to be spaced carefully and spoken in a deep, resonant tone which is pleasant to listen to. Many dark seducers listen to public speakers of great impact and carefully modify their method of verbal delivery to match what these great speakers have shown to be effective in the past. Others match their tonality and rhythm to that of their target, a technique known as verbal mirroring, which is covered in the next chapter. Chapter 8: Mirror of Madness. The essence of dark seduction presented in this book centers on a singular goal: to gain influence over a target to ultimately seduce them. In this chapter, we delve into the importance of establishing a profound rapport with the target, a concept rooted in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, a technique employed by influential figures like Tony Robbins and Darren Brown in the realm of interpersonal dynamics. This method of influence is known as mirroring. Here, you will discover what mirroring entails, its intended purpose, and the underlying reasons for its effectiveness. We will clearly outline the different forms of mirroring in an accessible way, and also highlight common pitfalls that seducers encounter while applying this technique, helping you avoid potential missteps. Understanding the basics. At its foundation, mirroring is about intentionally fostering a sense of rapport and similarity between a seducer and their target. This approach is designed to create a subconscious impression in the target that they share a strong connection and compatibility with the seducer, an affinity that can seem inexplicable through rational thought. While this may sound almost magical, it operates effectively for a simple reason. Mirroring occurs at a subconscious level. In fact, if the target becomes aware that the seducer is employing one of the mirroring techniques discussed here, its effectiveness diminishes significantly. Notably, humans naturally engage in mirroring behavior when they feel comfortable and connected with one another. To understand the reality of mirroring, observe people in pairs during your next outing. You'll likely notice that individuals in each other's company tend to unconsciously mimic various aspects of one another, such as posture, arm positioning, or the tilt of their heads. This behavior serves as evidence that mirroring is an ingrained phenomenon within human interactions. However, the distinction between natural mirroring and its use in dark seduction lies in intention. Seductive mirroring is employed consciously by the seducer to manipulate the target into feeling an unwarranted sense of connection. This manipulation creates an environment where the target unknowingly grants power and influence to the seducer. There are several types of mirroring, as outlined below, but the fundamental concept remains consistent. The seducer begins by subtly mirroring a minor detail of the target's speech or body language, gradually increasing the elements mirrored. The seducer may then alter something, such as their posture or speaking pace, observing closely to see if the target responds by adapting accordingly. When the target begins to mirror the seducer's behavior, it signals a green light for the seducer to apply further influence. This indicates that the target has developed a deep, subconscious rapport with the seducer, making them significantly more receptive to verbal suggestions and likely to comply with any actions the seducer seeks to initiate. Verbal mirroring. One interesting thing about verbal mirroring is you may have noticed it taking place outside of the area of seduction. This usually occurs when two people are interacting and one is seeking to gain the approval of the other. This is not carried out on a conscious level, it simply happens without the person realizing they're doing it, and often without the person who is being mirrored realizing what is taking place. For example, if you notice two people talking, and one is using certain slang terms, the other may begin to use them. Similarly, if one person has a regional accent and the other does not, the person without an accent may begin to speak with a strange twang. Verbal mirroring is therefore a phenomenon that is encoded into human behavior. As a result of it being natural, it makes it very difficult for people to detect and understand. We are hardwired to do it, and see it as normal. Due to this, unless it is carried out extremely badly, it should go undetected. So what are some of the main ways that verbal mirroring can take place? The best starting point for verbal mirroring is the pace of speech. Almost no one is aware of the pace at which they speak, and the rhythm of their diction. As a result, it is possible to imitate the other without them realizing it is happening. As with every other mirroring technique in this chapter, it should be carried out slowly and subtly at first. This is particularly true if there is naturally a gulf in the way in which the two people speak. For example, if a seducer speaks quite slowly, and the target speaks quite quickly, it is important for the seducer to gradually increase their speaking pace, in small increments, until they have caught up with the pace of their target. Going from a slow pace to a fast pace in almost no time at all is incredibly jarring and greatly increases the risk of being detected by the target. Aside from the pace of speech, other aspects of verbal mirroring include the intonation used by the target. Sometimes, targets will tend to place an unusual or distinctive verbal stress on the words they use. If the seducer is able to pick up on this vocal signature and mimic it, it can be a good way of building a sense of rapport with the victim. The frequency of speech is another aspect that can be verbally mirrored. Some people are very talkative, others less so. You will know from your own personal experience that being around someone who talks a lot more or a lot less than you do can be an annoying or difficult experience. Seducers are aware of this and will therefore adjust the frequency of their talk to match that of their target. It is important to note that verbal mirroring can work over text message and email in a similar way as it does via speech. Good seducers will mirror the type of language their target uses in a text, down to aspects such as complexity of vocabulary, sentence length, format, choice of greeting and type of punctuation used. By doing so, when reading the written communication, the target automatically thinks, "This is my kind of person," without being consciously aware of where the feeling of rapport is stemming from. Physical mirroring. Physical mirroring can relate to both gesture, expression, and appearance. This can be the most subtle type of mirroring to gain some initial results with when starting out in this dark seductive technique. When attempting physical mirroring for the first time, it is a good idea to start out small and work up. For example, a small movement of the head or the hand is a good trial by which to try out whether a target is ready to start copying your own movements, showing you have gained subconscious rapport over them. Mirroring aspects of a person's physical appearance is a high-risk, high-reward type of technique. On the one hand, it has been shown that people have a subconscious preference for people who dress and look like them. This has been shown by a range of scientific studies. On the other hand, if someone picks up on the fact you are trying to imitate their appearance, they are likely to be repulsed rather than attracted. Like the other forms of mirroring mentioned, it is therefore vital to try and carry this out in a subtle and under-the-radar way. Mirroring mistakes to avoid. The above section of this chapter goes into some of the basics of mirroring and the types of mirroring which can be carried out. You will now be presented with a run-through of the main mirroring mistakes to avoid. Mirroring, when done badly, is a quick way to destroy trust, rapport, and influence between a seducer and their target. Any or all of the following is a death sentence for superior seduction. Too much. Mirroring needs to be used as icing on the cake rather than the cake itself. Some people get overly excited by the idea of mirroring and think of it as some kind of superpower of mind control. It isn't. It's just a way of improving the level of rapport and influence that exists between seducer and target, and allowing the seducer a way to judge how their seductive intent is progressing, and whether it is working as intended. Trying to mirror everything is stupid and a waste of energy. Any good seducer knows that there are many aspects of the seductive process they need to be aware of. If they are trying to mirror every aspect of a target's physicality and verbality, the seducer will not be able to focus on anything else. Mirroring is a technique rather than the technique. Treat it as such. Too soon. Mirroring is something which should be eased into, rather than used from the initial minute the interaction begins. At the start of a seductive interaction, most targets have their guard up. They are therefore more alert and conscious and, as a result, more likely to notice that mirroring is taking place. Instead of trying to mirror their target right away, the skilled seducer first gains some kind of other emotional influence over their target, and ensures they have some degree of trust and comfort. Mirroring can then be used to deepen that trust, rather than to create it initially. Too often. Anyone who has ever used mirroring efficiently, in other words has effectively mirrored, led, and watched the target respond well, knows it is a powerful feeling. This can lead to dark seducers doing it purely to feel powerful, rather than using it as a means to an end. Like any other technique in this book, dark seduction relies upon doing things purely for a purpose, rather than for their own sake. Don't fall into the trap of mirroring as some kind of game. It exists only to further the seductive process. Look beyond the mirror. This chapter has shown the possibility of creating advanced levels of rapport and influence using verbal and physical tactics. In our next chapter, you will learn how to create a deep sense of comfort and familiarity with a target in a short space of time. The next chapter is the closest thing to time travel. Read on to discover how master dark seducers are able to addict a target to them within an astoundingly short space of time. Chapter 9, Time-Distorted Seduction. As you've already discovered, one key factor that distinguishes dark seducers from ordinary individuals in their seduction tactics is their willingness to do whatever it takes. A prime example of this is their remarkable ability to establish a deep emotional connection and intense chemistry with their targets in a remarkably brief period. Dark seducers excel at provoking strong feelings and building rapport, allowing them to navigate the seductive process far more swiftly than most others can. This chapter will delve exclusively into the techniques and strategies employed by dark seducers to accelerate their seductive pursuits. The specific methods will be thoroughly unveiled, accompanied by an explanation of the psychological principles that underpin their effectiveness. Ultimately, this knowledge reveals an almost supernatural capability to manipulate the perception of time, bending it to the dark seducer's advantage. Slow and steady does not win the race. One of the traditional viewpoints on seduction that exists within mainstream thought is the desirability of taking things slow and not rushing. Largely speaking, this misconception that most people have comes down to one of three factors: a limiting belief stating that faster progress is not possible, a moral belief that going quicker during a pursuit is somehow wrong, or the fact that the mainstream seducer has never questioned the status quo and even considered whether there is another, more efficient path to seduction. One of the key mistakes people make, as a result of the above limitations, is plotting out their romance ahead of time. They may try and hold hands on the second date, kiss on the third, invite the other person home on the fifth, or some other such nonsense. This is ridiculous. Sexual chemistry between people is not something so predictable or easy to make linear. Dark seducers know this. A skilled seducer knows that if something can happen slowly, over a period of time, there are ways to accelerate the process and get what they want sooner. A lifetime in an evening. The extent to which dark seducers deploy the following techniques depend upon two things: how fast they want the interaction to move, and how much they feel the target will require a distorted sense of time to feel comfortable enough to give the seducer what they want. Like any other technique in this book, skilled dark seducers use it as a careful, adjusted art form, rather than as a lazy, one-size-fits-all type sledgehammer approach. If a dark seducer decides that someone they have just met is the type of person they want to progress a seduction with as quickly as possible, they are likely to begin leading and moving the person around from almost the moment of meeting them. This can literally begin within minutes. The seducer will say something along the lines of, "Let's stand over there," or "Let's go outside and get some fresh air." As the evening progresses, the seducer may propose venue switches, saying something like, "This place is boring, let's go to this other place," or "Let's go get some food." Basically, as you see from the above, the seducer aims to move their target around as much as possible in the course of a short space of time. This may sound simple, but, like most techniques in this book, the complexity stems from the execution of the tactic, rather than the tactic itself. If you notice in the verbal examples above, the seducer never asks, but always states. This helps to establish the seducer as a commanding, leading figure. This is known as establishing the frame. It is not enough for the seducer's words alone to be authoritative. It is essential for the seducer's tone of voice to be solid and their body language to convey the fact that the seducer expects to be obeyed. People find it much easier to be led by someone who genuinely comes across as an authoritative leader. Anything other than this is incongruent and unappealing. So why does the above technique work? Basically, a target will feel as if they have known the seducer for far, far longer than they really have. Think about it. If a seducer and their target go to several different places together in the course of a few hours, rather than just sitting at one table in one restaurant like so many conventional dates, then in the target's mind, the seducer is someone they have had a far greater range of experience with. This is how the human mind works. Time is deeply subjective. Creating the sensation of a lot of time spent together is just as effective, if not more effective, than actually spending that time together. Future talk. The previous section showed how the physical act of leading and moving a target around is one of the seduction hacks used by dark seducers to create a deep sense of comfort and rapid familiarity with their target. The verbal equivalent of this will now be shown. It is important to note that the techniques are not mutually exclusive. They can and should be used in conjunction to amplify and intensify the effect they have. It sounds deceptively simple, but talking about a shared future can lead to a high level of comfort in the target's mind that would not otherwise exist. There are two main approaches to this tactic: doing it seriously, and doing it from a place of humor. Each will now be shown, with examples. To make more serious talk of the future work effectively, the seducer will typically casually, and without acting like it's a big deal, drop casual remarks about the future into the conversation. For example, if the target mentions a certain type of music or food they like, the seducer will say something like, "Oh, there's this epic place for that nearby, we'll go there sometime." This will be said in a very offhand manner, and the seducer will then move on rapidly without dwelling on the topic, or even waiting for a response. Using the area of the future in a humorous way can also work well. This usually involves making absurd plans together. This is primarily used to create a sense of fun as well as comfort. The ridiculous plans can then form the basis of in-jokes, which are used as part of a dark seducer's verbal seduction. See the section on verbal seduction for more information on this usage. The art of time travel. As ever, the way in which the techniques are applied is more important than the techniques themselves. These are some of the key questions that dark seducers focus on when working with the topic of the future as part of verbal game. 1. What do I want to achieve here? 2. What will this particular target, at this particular time, respond well to? 3. How is what I've tried so far being responded to, and do I need to adjust? Note that this is not a conscious process of questioning for the seducer. They aren't manually crossing off items on a checklist. Instead, the seducer knows almost instinctively, due to endless experience, what they need to do in relation to any or all of these questions. As well as having a clear, justified intention based on the instinctive response to the above questions, a skilled seducer is also aware of what to do when something they try in this area doesn't work out as intended. Let's explore some responses to both types of roadblock: resistance to physical leading and resistance to verbal future planning. If the target of a seduction shows resistance to being led, either within a venue or to another venue, the first important thing is for the seducer to not react to this. The worst thing a seducer can do in this situation is to get angry, or annoyed, or lose their cool in any way whatsoever. Even a brief sign of facial anger can totally ruin the seduction and be difficult to recover from. Instead, the seducer should just smoothly continue with whatever verbal or physical game they are running at the time. The rejection to be led only becomes a big deal if the seducer treats it as such. If, however, a target repeatedly shows resistance to being led, even when their levels of comfort seem to have increased, or they have relaxed more, it is important for the seducer to reassess whether they are the best target to spend time on in that situation, or whether there are better ways to spend their time. Good seduction is never about forcing, or making anyone do anything they are uncomfortable with. It is simply about leading people into pleasurable experiences. Excessive resistance can show that a target is just not in the right headspace to be seduced on that occasion. If that's the case, the seducer should politely move on. Resistance to verbal future talk is less of a big deal and more fun to overcome. If the seducer starts joking around or mentioning the future in a semi-serious way, and the target calls them out on it, there are a number of possible responses. The seducer may tease the target, something along the lines of, "Wow, you must not talk to people that often if this is weird for you, how cute." Sometimes, a seducer will simply shut down what the target says, by saying something like, "Okay," and then moving on like it never happened. A final comic response is to exaggerate. So if a target is like, "Why do you want to see me so much in the future?" the seducer may say something like, "Yeah, I want to see you so badly. I want to see you tomorrow morning, and then every day after, and then we will get married next week, and move in together, and so on." This should be done in an absurd, joking tone of voice in order to create fun and good feeling in the process. Chapter 10: Seductive Shadows. The concept of shadows is integral to dark seduction, distinguishing it from more conventional seduction strategies. Mainstream advice typically encourages individuals to be themselves to attract their desired partner. This cliché is not only dull but also largely ineffective. The notion of a fixed self contradicts reality and proves unhelpful in the pursuit of seductive targets. In reality, people possess the capacity to embody nearly any identity they choose, frequently adapting their behavior and mindset, often unconsciously, based on their current environment and circumstances. Psychological studies, such as Zimbardo's prison experiment and Milgram's obedience experiment, demonstrate that individuals can alter their behavior significantly in response to social expectations and situational contexts. Recognizing that human behavior is malleable rather than static, why not harness this adaptability for personal advantage? Dark seducers understand that since there is no definitive essence to a person, they can seamlessly become whoever is necessary during any interaction to achieve their desired outcome. This chapter explores how dark seducers modify their personalities and identities to craft experiences that resonate with their targets, ultimately increasing the likelihood of compliance with their seductive pursuits. Filling the gaps. To effectively utilize this shadow element of seduction, a dark seducer must first abandon any rigid concept of self and possess the ability to identify what their target lacks in life. Since the essence of the shadow game is to become whatever the other person needs, it's essential to uncover their current deficiencies. The most adept seducers accomplish this through a combination of incisive questioning and keen intuition. While a person will inevitably share some personal details when asked, skilled seducers go beyond simple verbal inquiries. They keenly observe body language, life circumstances, age, and overall demeanor to gather insights about their target. A dark seducer seeks to understand their target's personality, values, general satisfaction with life, risk tolerance, and numerous other factors. Different seducers adopt various tactics to tailor themselves to their targets. Some will accentuate elements of their own lives that forge a sense of connection and familiarity, while others will strive to present themselves as not just similar but an enhanced version of the target. For instance, if intelligence is valued by the target, the seducer will not only convey their own intelligence but will also position themselves as superior in this regard. Occasionally, a seducer might employ a safari approach to the shadow element of their seduction. This entails exhibiting an exhilarating aspect of their personality that captivates the target, akin to a thrilling excursion that one would not wish to engage with long-term. This technique is particularly effective for short-term seduction goals. To discern the most effective shape their shadow should assume during interactions, some seducers experiment with different personas, noting which resonates most with their target. A seducer might express a touch of intelligence, a hint of arrogance, or overwhelming friendliness. They will then hone in on the quality that garners the best response for the remainder of the interaction. The term shadows aptly encapsulates this adaptable quality of dark seduction. Much like real shadows, seducers shift in response to their surroundings and circumstances. At times, a shadow may expand, at others, it may contract, and it can even morph entirely in shape. Like all techniques in a dark seducer's repertoire, the shadow strategy does not have an on or off switch, rather, it is applied to varying degrees depending on the specific situation. The power of the shadow. The true power of this aspect of dark seduction, and the reason why it works so well, is due to the fact that it allows dark seducers to connect with almost anyone at almost any time. Contrast this adaptable approach with the approach of most people. Yes, every now and then, maybe once or twice in a lifetime, they will stumble across someone they have a connection with. Dark seducers, on the other hand, are able to precisely reverse engineer exactly what makes this connection take place, and make it happen as often as they want. Switching up the personality they portray at any given time is a key reason why seducers are able to play their seductive game for such prolonged periods of time. If seduction artists were going out night after night and trying the same things again and again, it would soon cause them to become bored and quit the game entirely. By becoming shadows and being adaptable, seduction artists are able to keep their own levels of personal motivation high. The shadow also gives a seducer a huge advantage in almost every other area of their life. By knowing exactly how they need to be around any given person, they are sure to form deep connections, or at least as deep as they desire, with a wide range of people in almost every area of life, whether personal, professional, or purely friends. This means that the doors of social situations are always open to seducers who are able to use the shadow technique properly. Mixing truth and deception. So far, if you have paid attention to this chapter and contemplated its ideas, you may have been left thinking that a dark seducer needs to be some kind of actor in order to have success with the shadow technique. This is partially the case, but not entirely. The best seducers don't out and out invent personas on the spot, they instead find a grain of their own self which fits the persona they wish to portray, and amplify it. For example, let's imagine, through a mixture of questioning and intuition, a dark seducer has determined that the best course of action is to show themselves to be a creative person. Instead of inventing some rough sketch of such a person, they would instead tap into their own creative side. They would emphasize and amplify the parts of their own personality, adding and exaggerating where needed, in order to appeal to the target they were interacting with at the time. They would also downplay their own personality in the process. This method of creating a shadow from your own soul is far more effective than trying to guess at and imitate the desired shadow personality. A shadow persona which has no basis in reality whatsoever is very unlikely to be able to win a target over. Most people are more intuitive than we give them credit for, and something which is based entirely on falsehood, without having even an aspect of the truth, is likely to come across as phony and lose any attraction which has been created. Shadow HQ. The shadow technique just described, along with the mirroring and manipulation of time described in previous chapters, are all intended to create a sense of comfort and compatibility between the target and the seducer. Is this enough? No. Think of the rapport and comfort as almost the creation of a base from which the seducer is able to operate. It is important to have a strong foundation to launch a seductive plan from, but is not enough in and of itself. The next few sections of this book will show the playbook by which a seducer can carry out their intentions, having established a firm position of comfort and familiarity with which to do so. Now that you understand thoroughly how a seducer gains power over their target, read on to figure out exactly what they do with that power once it has been gained. Chapter 11, Reward and Punishment. Up to this point, the book has thoroughly examined the theoretical underpinnings of dark seduction, detailing how dark seducers engage their targets and manipulate the dynamics of these interactions in their favor. This chapter marks the first exploration of how seducers wield the power they have gained. It is crucial to understand that the techniques discussed in this chapter are effective only when the seducer possesses genuine power, specifically, when the target feels a connection with the seducer. If you intend to apply these strategies, ensure you first establish rapport through techniques like mirroring and leading, as outlined in previous chapters. Without this foundational rapport, the later methods will likely be ineffective. This chapter delves into a significant area of interest for many dark seducers, the concepts of reward and punishment. This involves how a seducer encourages or dissuades their target's behavior. The tactics presented here can be employed at any stage of the seduction process, provided a sufficient connection has been established. Rewards and punishments can be applied from the very first encounter or even after years of relationship. Tactical praise and calculated criticism. The core approach through which a seducer asserts control over their target's behavior, shaping them into the desired persona, involves using praise and criticism in a careful and strategic manner. Unlike typical interactions, dark seducers seldom offer praise or criticism without thoughtful consideration, recognizing that words can serve as powerful tools that must be wielded with intent. So how does calculated praise and criticism differ from conventional forms? There are two primary distinctions. Firstly, the occasions when these responses are employed differ. Secondly, the nature of the praise and criticism dispensed deviates. Let's analyze each aspect individually. In contrast to the average person who expresses praise out of genuine positive intent, a seducer utilizes praise solely for self-serving reasons, specifically, to exert pressure on the target to behave in a particular manner. The seducer's rationale for offering praise isn't that the target has merited it but rather that they wish to reinforce a specific behavior. Similarly, while many morally inclined individuals criticize or advise with the intent of helping others, a seducer remains indifferent, acting solely in their own interests. A true dark seducer won't hesitate to criticize actions they dislike, even if those actions personally benefit the target. Some readers may find this portrayal of reward and punishment troubling, viewing it as immoral. However, the reality is that this approach is not strictly moral or immoral, rather, it is amoral. The nature of praise and criticism employed by a dark seducer, as well as the limits of their verbal and nonverbal expressions, are determined entirely by the seducer. The technique itself is neutral, capable of both nurturing and harm. So, how do seducers effectively use praise and criticism to influence their targets? Some focus on the way a target responds during interactions. For instance, if a target shows insufficient interest, a seducer might employ criticism. Alternatively, if the target reacts positively and engages appropriately, rewards can be utilized. The seducer may also target a target's appearance with either praise or subtle insults, thereby influencing how the target chooses to present themselves. Furthermore, the concepts of reward and punishment can be applied to the physical responses of targets. For instance, if a target hesitates to reciprocate physical affection, the seducer might express criticism through remarks like, "I wish you weren't so boring," or through nonverbal cues such as a disapproving look. It's important to note that what works for one target may not be effective for another. The most skilled dark seducers understand that there is no definitive method for rewarding or criticizing, rather, they rely on what seems most impactful in the moment. Some targets may respond best to direct verbal feedback, while others may react more favorably to subtle, even passive-aggressive, forms of praise or criticism. The ability to experiment and learn from experience is essential for a dark seducer seeking to effectively gain compliance from their target. Operant conditioning. The reason why this method of reward and criticism is so effective is due to a psychological principle called operant conditioning. It basically refers to the fact that it is possible for behavior to be changed, or conditioned, by the response it receives. The theory is complex and detailed, so will not be covered in any more depth than needed here. Feel free to search and read about it if you want further scientific validation for the principles in this chapter. Psychotic inconsistency. Controversially, it can be said that most people use reward and criticism to influence behavior of the people they interact with. The difference with a dark seducer, however, is that the dark seducer is consciously aware of what they are doing and the impact they wish it to have, whereas most people just happen to respond in a certain way to certain things. This deliberate usage of encouragement and discouragement is by no means the only way that reward and punishment differs for a dark seducer. The most shameless of all dark seducers who are willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want out of a target will develop a pattern of inconsistency with their praise and criticism. This unpredictability leaves a target feeling on edge and never exactly sure of when they will feel reassured and when they will feel attacked. This type of psychotic emotional manipulation has parallels, bizarrely, with the world of animal training. In order to get sea creatures such as dolphins to jump through hoops at places like SeaWorld, animal trainers first give them a fish or other reward every time they jump through the hoop. Eventually, the dolphin becomes lazy and does not put as much effort into their jumps. To counteract this, the trainer chooses to give the dolphin a fish sometimes, no fish other times, and a lot of fish at random intervals. This results in the dolphin never knowing when a reward or lack of reward is on the way. The creature therefore makes extra effort on every jump. Dark seducers use reward and criticism in a similar way to dolphin trainers. They never allow their targets to fall into a feeling of safety or certainty. Whatever happens next is always unpredictable and, as a result, the target is always going out of their way to go the extra mile for the seducer, in the hope of receiving a random reward. This is an effective, albeit evil, system of control. Chapter 12: The Delicate Balance Between Temptation and Fear. One fascinating aspect of dark seducers is their keen understanding of the interplay between temptation and fear during seductive encounters. They recognize that individuals often grapple with their natural desires while contending with societal conditioning and external pressures that suppress their true freedom. The most adept dark seducers skillfully navigate this delicate balance, embodying both the devil and the angel, guiding their targets through an emotional labyrinth that plays on the full spectrum of feelings. In this chapter, we will delve into how dark seducers infiltrate their targets' minds, uncovering the intricate blend of desire, uncertainty, and everything that lies in between. We'll examine how seducers analyze their targets' passions and reservations to evoke and shape their actions effectively. Ultimately, we'll demonstrate that the pinnacle of mastery for a dark seducer lies in manipulating a target's own desires, turning them into tools for psychological control, without the target ever realizing it's occurring. Devil and angel. A crucial point often overlooked is that the devil was originally an angel. This duality of good versus evil and purity versus pleasure is something a dark seducer not only recognizes but fully embraces. As highlighted in the book's early chapters, dark seducers stand out for their ability to perceive the world as it truly is and to leverage it to their advantage. Understanding this dual nature and how to exploit it is integral to their approach. Dark seducers revel in oscillating between the roles of devil and angel, whispering conflicting messages to their targets. One moment, they may adopt the devilish persona, enticing the target to exceed their boundaries and indulge in uninhibited pleasure. The next, they switch to the angelic role, chastising the target for their transgressions and questioning their desires. Just as an earlier chapter discussed the emotional highs and lows seducers can provoke, this chapter focuses on the moral fluctuations they can trigger. The most skillful seducers lead their targets to experience a dynamic mix of naughtiness, guilt, and intense longing. This emotional and moral variety not only keeps the seduction captivating but also taps into aspects of their target's psyches that are seldom addressed in their daily lives. We inhabit a largely amoral world, where feelings of guilt and ethical considerations are often overshadowed by material pursuits. Nevertheless, all humans possess a strong moral compass and a latent conscience, ready to be activated. The best dark seducers understand how to transform a target's conscience into an ally, enhancing their efforts to seduce the target in whatever manner they desire. White and black thread woven into rope. Temptation, desire, guilt, and other associated moral emotions should not be seen as separate. They are usually different sides to the same coin. Think of a target's moral compass as being like a prism. Depending on what light is shined through it, it produces a different output. Dark seducers are the light, or lack of it. Depending upon the way in which they choose to flow through their target, they may manage to trigger outputs of guilt, desire, or a mixture of the two through the same source. The best dark seducers don't see desire and remorse as separate, rather they are interconnected aspects of the same whole. A skilled seducer will therefore be able to say things which trigger the responses of desire and guilt at the same time. An example would be something like, "I wish you weren't making me want you so much right now, you are so shameless." This is an interesting line for several reasons. First of all, it places the blame for the seduction on the target rather than on the seducer. This is likely to trigger equal feelings of lust, shame, and guilt in the target, a potent mixture. Second, the exciting temptation stemming from the phrase "want you" is mixed in with the reproachful "shameless." The mixed messages send strong signals to the target's subconscious mind that strongly amplify the emotional intensity and feeling of meaning present in a seductive encounter. Bend but never break. The best dark seducer is like a tightrope walker. They are always walking a very thin, very perilous line between pushing the target right to the edge of, and even slightly past, their comfort zone, but never pushing them so far outside of it that they break down and end the interaction. Everyone has boundaries. Dark seducers are better than most of eliciting these from a target and knowing exactly how far they can be prodded and played with. The breaking point differs from target to target. Interestingly, the breaking point often differs at different points in the same interaction for the same target. For example, a person's breaking point at the start of an interaction when they have hardly spoken to the seducer may be lower than later in the interaction when they feel familiar and more at ease in the company of a dark seducer. The best seducers are always able to gauge and recalibrate where a breaking point is throughout an interaction, rather than assuming it stays static and remains what it was at first. One of the ways in which a dark seducer is able to push a target's breaking point is to take a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach. This sees the seducer pushing the target's comfort zone just a little bit too far, and then retreating for a period of time, before pushing forward again. This gradually increases the moral testing the target is able to withstand without breaking entirely and walking away. Verbal moral tests. So far, this issue of morality and pushing the boundaries may sound entirely serious and heavy-going. In actual fact, it doesn't have to be that way. Skilled seducers are able to deal with the topics of morality and boundaries in a way which comes across as fun, cheeky and playful rather than rude or intrusive. Let's look at some of the ways this can take place. One way to get the target to open up about their moral limits, desires, and qualms is by phrasing the exploration as a game. If the seducer says something like, "Let's play a game called, Would You Ever?" and then proceeds to test a target's moral limits, but in a playful tone of voice, the target is less likely to resist. Even though they are revealing the same information as they would if the target asked them seriously, it doesn't feel serious due to the way in which the seducer presents the situation. Another way in which seducers are able to explore their target's morality is with leading questions. These can put some kind of subtle pressure on the target to open up. An example would be a seducer saying, "A lot of fun and adventurous people I know have made out with people of the same sex. Have you ever done that?" The way in which the question is framed makes the target feel as if they need to live up to the standard set by the seducer. Chapter 13, Demonic Sexual Seduction. In this chapter, we will examine how certain seducers harness sexual energy as a pivotal element of the seduction process. This is not a manual on sexual intercourse itself. Instead, it aims to analyze the ways in which energy and subtle sexual undertones can amplify the attraction between the seducer and their target. The term demonic energy is employed here to capture the essence of how, when these techniques are executed adeptly, targets often feel a loss of control over themselves. The most skilled seducers have the ability to master the energy of their interactions using the strategies discussed here, which can evoke feelings similar to those associated with demonic possession, given the intensity and overwhelming nature of the experience they generate. Historically, the most accomplished seducers have tapped into implied sexual energy to elevate the tension within their interactions. Human sexuality is a potent and enduring impulse that transcends cultural shifts or societal norms. Consequently, the same methods that served legendary seducers like Rasputin and Casanova continue to be effective today. This chapter will delve into a variety of techniques that adept seducers employ to channel sexual energy during their engagements. These techniques will be categorized into physical, verbal, subcommunication, and acts of intent, adhering to the psychological principles outlined elsewhere in this book, focusing on effectiveness rather than ethical considerations. Before proceeding, a key point of clarification is necessary. The techniques discussed herein are not intended to infringe upon the free will of those being engaged. Instead, they are designed to enhance the intensity of the experience for both parties. This should be viewed positively, not negatively. As always, the techniques themselves are amoral. It is the user who ultimately determines the outcome. Subcommunication and intent. In this section, we will explore how sexual energy and tension can be created through subtle and indirect means. The most proficient seducers excel at employing nuanced body language and intentionality to achieve their desired effects. The most effective form of seduction in this context is often imperceptible to outside observers. Onlookers may believe that nothing significant is occurring since the influence exerted by the seducers is predominantly felt by the individuals they interact with. What are the implications of this? This ability allows seducers to cultivate intense sexual tension without it being obvious or inappropriate to those around them. This is a vital skill that enables some of the greatest pickup artists in history to operate discreetly in public settings, transitioning smoothly from one target to another throughout the course of an evening. In contrast, less skilled seducers might resort to crude or overt techniques that fail to produce the desired effect, highlighting the superiority of a more refined and subtle approach. Be congruent. So, what specific methods do adept seducers use to enhance tension and sensuality in an interaction? The foremost factor is often the seducer's internal state, which ties back to the initial discussions in this book regarding the distinction between internal and external aspects of seduction. To genuinely convey tension and sexual confidence, seducers must first cultivate this inner reality within themselves before they can effectively project it outward. People are adept at sensing when a seducer lacks authenticity in their projected feelings. There must be alignment between what a seducer internally experiences and what they communicate through words and actions to their target. Thus, it is crucial for seducers to establish the right mindset before embarking on the seduction process. Always warm up. The implications of this are as follows. Seducers must first effectively game themselves before they are able to game others. Just as a seducer must always be aware of their target's comfort level and feelings during the course of an interaction, they must also be aware of their own personal state and mood. Basically, a seducer must always be willing to judge whether they themselves are feeling authentically sexual before they are able to make others feel this way. Also, for many seducers, this requires a process of warming up. What is meant by warming up is the ability to get into a social, confident, outgoing place of interaction that allows the seducer to express what they are truly feeling. Some seducers are able to trigger this state in themselves by listening to music, expressing their physical posture in a certain way, or doing other hacks, shortcuts, and tricks in order to feel this way. For others, it is a more gradual process. For example, some seducers may walk into a venue feeling not so confident and not so sexual. As they do some basic interactions with people in the vicinity, their confidence levels increase and they slowly become more and more in state as the evening progresses. Relaxed laser eye contact. One of the keys to projecting the appropriate energy during the course of the interaction is having the appropriate eye contact. This should be intense but not to the point of being intimidating. The seducer shouldn't be scared of holding fixed eye contact during the course of the interaction. However, the eye contact should be somewhat relaxed and not to the point where it feels like staring. This is a subtle difference, but one which the most experienced pickup artists are fully aware of how to make work in their favor. In order to become familiar with the correct type of eye contact that is likely to produce the desired result, it is necessary for the seducer to gain personal experience in this area. There is no substitute for either going out regularly and practicing this aspect of seduction or watching videos of some of the best seducers and modeling their own behavior. Thankfully, both of these options are completely possible for the modern seduction artist. YouTube has a wealth of videos from some of the best seducers in the modern times by using the latest pickup techniques which get the best results. If there is any doubt in the mind of the seducer as to what they should be doing, then there are two simple remedies to this problem. First, learning what must be done in terms of the correct level of eye contact. Second, practicing this for themselves over time until it becomes second nature and they automatically make the right type of eye contact without it being something they have to think about or consciously do. Falling under the guise of someone who has got this area of game handled can have quite a powerful effect. The target will often respond by showing a mixture of awareness and interaction with their own physicality. For example, when this type of eye contact is done well, the target may begin to subconsciously touch their hair, brushing it away from their face in response to the eye contact. This is traditionally known as an indicator of interest. It is one of the ways that the seducer is able to tell that what they are doing is working. When first starting out practicing this aspect of seduction, it may be necessary for a seducer to manually think throughout if whether what they are doing is having the desired effect. However, over time, a seducer will learn to judge their impact through intuition. This is one of the reasons why it is necessary to practice as much as possible in order to become an effective, skilled, and instinctive seducer. Slow it down. One of the ways in which this type of energy is able to be created is through modification of the pace of the interaction. One of the common mistakes which many people make when attempting seduction is to talk and behave in a way which is too fast. The best seducers, on the other hand, are able to slow down the pace of the interaction in order to make the target feel comfortable and ready for something more to happen. This can relate to the way in which their voice is used. For example, if you listen to yourself talking very rapidly, and then more deliberately, you will notice that the slower pace is more appealing and sensual to listen to. This should be used cautiously. It is important to have an authentic impact rather than coming across as some kind of parody of a seductive character. This subtle difference is something which can be gauged through persistent practice. As well as using the pace of words to create the desired effect and tension, it is also a good idea to speak in a more deliberate way. This involves leaving pauses between words, particularly when the person wishes to emphasize something they are saying. This can also create a feeling of expectation on behalf of the target, which can leave the seducer in a position of power. In order to get a feeling for how this can be used to create energy and therefore tension, listen to speeches by some of the best public speakers of our era. You will notice that they are effectively able to use pauses in order to create a compelling speaking voice which is almost hypnotic to listen to. The speed of their physical movement is also something which a seduction artist must be aware of when they are interacting. Jerky movements and motions are unattractive and give off the feeling of the seducer being in a rush. Instead, it is better for the seduction artist to move in a slow, controlled, and deliberate way. This results in a physical smoothness which is unlikely to disrupt the pace or feel of an interaction. An alternative fast movement can give the impression of panic, which can result in the spell and tension which has been created being disrupted. When the volume of an interaction has been disrupted, it can be almost impossible to recover. When it is not impossible, it can be very difficult and time-consuming to do so. It is therefore best to avoid doing anything which interrupts the pace of the interaction in the first place. Always being aware of and being in control of one's own movements is therefore essential. Alternating pressure. One of the main mistakes that people make when attempting this area of seduction is to do too much too soon. People can feel overwhelmed and overloaded if someone they are interacting with is overly sexual from the beginning of the interaction. While it is sometimes possible to come on strong early, and for it to work, it is not the best course of action. Instead, it is better to gradually, and slowly, ramp up the sensuality throughout the course of the interaction. This prevents the problem of the target feeling overwhelmed too early and therefore backing away from the interaction. This requires the seducer to use a process known as calibration to get the best results. This always requires the seducer to be aware of their target's comfort level at any given time. It is almost like working with metal. The metal must be heated up slowly in order to be bent into the shape that the artist desires. Too much heat, too soon, will result in the metal being destroyed and therefore unable to be shaped. Seduction is no different. Heat must be used gradually in order to mold the target's will to the intent of the person shaping it. This is best achieved through alternating periods of high and low intensity. For example, the seduction artist may choose to use an intensely sexual tone and physicality for a short period of time, before returning to a less intimidating and less intense way of interacting. This is sometimes known as pressure on, pressure off. It stops the target from feeling too overwhelmed and wanting to back away before the seduction has the chance to proceed. Addictive sexual energy. Due to the fact that a feeling of sexual energy is actually quite addictive on a biochemical level, if a seducer is able to use this effectively, they are able to leave their target feeling as if they are physically addicted to the presence of the person who has seduced them. This type of interpersonal addiction is a double-edged sword. This is due to the fact that, on the one hand, the seducer is able to ensure that the target comes back for more. On the other hand, it can result in a situation where the seducer has multiple people who are addicted to their presence at any one time. This can end up requiring some difficult social management to stop the situation from resulting in fights and jealousy occurring. This may sound fantastical, but if you speak to any experienced seducer, you are almost certain to hear some stories of various targets becoming jealous of one another. A key component of this jealousy is the addictive nature of the sexual energy and attention which the best seducers are able to create. The addictive component of this sexuality is one of the key things that stops a seduction artist from ever falling into the friend zone. Simply put, they do not give the people they are interacting with the option of seeing them as a friend. There is no possible way to think only in friendly terms of someone who was putting across a high level of sexual energy. This is by no means to say that everyone a seduction artist interacts with will feel attracted to them. However, the sexual component of seduction acts as a filter. It forces people to see the seduction artist as a person of sexual intent. The choice is simple. Either feel attraction for the seduction artist on a sexual level, or, alternatively, to be polarized by them in a way which does not end in friendship. This aspect of seduction is a way to avoid the problem of someone you are attracted to only seeing you as a friend. Chapter 14, The Disappearing Devil. This chapter will explore a concept from Machiavelli's The Prince, interpreting and applying it within the realm of seduction. Machiavelli argues that a key source of a ruler's power is their general unavailability. Consider a king or queen. Their existence unfolds behind the walls of palaces and prestigious buildings, inaccessible to most. The infrequent presence of high-status individuals is prestigious, as it is a rarity that people come to value. This principle of scarcity is a fundamental economic concept that skilled seducers adeptly leverage to their advantage. In this chapter, we will examine how seduction artists tap into the notions of scarcity and rarity to heighten their allure in the eyes of those they wish to captivate. We'll analyze both the practical and philosophical ramifications of this technique, contrasting it with the more conventional approaches commonly observed. The chapter will not only highlight effective strategies but also explain why they succeed. This understanding empowers practitioners to implement these techniques confidently, equipped with insight into their effectiveness. This deliberate application of ideas distinguishes a true seduction artist from a novice. The mainstream mistake. Before delving into the right ways to cultivate scarcity and unavailability, we must first consider the common pitfalls. This erroneous viewpoint is particularly prevalent in contemporary seductive thinking, exacerbated by the ubiquity of smartphones and messaging apps. With social media and instant messaging, individuals remain perpetually accessible, and many platforms even indicate when messages have been read, creating pressure for immediate responses. This culture of constant availability undermines the principle of scarcity, which can enhance personal value. Classic narratives of romance and seduction showcase the power of longing and anticipation. For instance, consider the well-worn story of a heroine waiting for her beloved who has gone off to war, anxiously awaiting a letter that could take time to arrive. The seductive power of this scenario lies in the anticipation and daydreams that can arise during such waits. In contrast, a culture of instant replies eliminates the space for this joyful anticipation, effectively stripping away the opportunity for one to indulge in romantic fantasies. Scarcity as status. Think about the attempts of fans to interact with their celebrity heroes. Fans will attempt to contact the celebrities they admire through social media. Do they always expect a response? No. When a response is received, it is seen as a big deal and the person's incredibly happy and joyful. The reply is appreciated and enjoyed but is not expected. Fans naturally understand that celebrities are busy people whose time is valuable. Therefore, a response is seen as something to be enjoyed, not to be expected. A sign of low value and not having a full and fulfilling life is always replying to messages promptly. It suggests you have nothing better to do and nothing to occupy your time. Even if this is the case and you don't have anything going on, you should at least appear as if you do. People will quickly become bored with someone who is always available and always there to indulge them. There is a balancing act to be learned between being unavailable and available in the right measure. Either option to excess is a bad choice. There needs to be a delicate middle ground between being available and unavailable. This produces the maximum level of interest and helps your seductive efforts in the optimum way. One of the best ways to go about achieving this balance is to alternate times you reply promptly and times where you take longer to reply. You may also wish to vary the length and detail that you put into your replies. This has the effect of leaving someone always anticipating when you may or may not reply to them. This creates a feeling of excitement and uncertainty in the mind of your target. They know that it is possible that you will give them your attention and do so in depth, however they cannot be sure of it. If done well, this technique will produce the effect of someone being excited when they hear from you and looking forward to it. Sometimes, someone you are interacting with will call you out on your lack of a prompt reply. When this does occur, the best response is to tease them and to have fun. For example, you can say in a jokey tone of voice that they missed you and you can make fun of them for this. Alternatively, you can use an absurd sense of humor to concoct a ridiculous tale of why you were unable to reply. Whatever you do, do not attempt to rationally justify or explain your lack of response. To do so, use low-status behavior which gives away the balance of power in the interaction to the person you are interacting with. The balance. You should always aim to be just on the edge of too unavailable. It is always better to be slightly too scarce than slightly too available. The intended effect should be to make the person you're interacting with feel as if they always just on the verge of losing you without actually losing you. This is a good thing to get right and will probably require an extensive period of practice in order to master. There is no way around the fact that, when you are learning the art of scarcity and unavailability, you will probably mess up some of your interactions. Don't be sad about this. See it as invaluable training in which you are learning the skills necessary to get better in the future. Almost no one becomes a master overnight, and it is inevitable that you will mess up with some of the people you desire in the early stages of your seductive career. If you have properly internalized the concepts regarding abundance and becoming not attached to any one person, any of this will not matter to you. After all, why does it matter if you lose one person, if there are a million more waiting for you? Therefore, don't be scared to be too scarce in order to learn where the limits are. In the long run, this will set you up far better than if you play it safe and stay within the boundaries of availability which are usually found within the mainstream. Micro-scarcity. So far, this chapter has dealt with the idea of unavailability and scarcity in relation to responding to messages and being generally unavailable. This section of the chapter will deal with the idea of being unavailable on a micro scale. For example, it is a good idea to project a vibe of scarcity and unavailability during the course of a one-on-one interaction. What is meant by this? Basically, a skilled seduction artist is able to give the impression that they are always on the verge of becoming bored and walking away. As human beings, we naturally chase what is difficult for us to achieve. This is due to the fact that anything which is valuable in life does not necessarily come easily. In order to project this scarce vibe, there are several techniques you can use. We will now look at some of the ways in which you can seem scarce and unavailable in the course of a one-on-one interaction. First, it is important for you to have clear boundaries of what you will and won't accept while being interacted with. People will either consciously or subconsciously test you while you interact with them. Your ability to deal with these tests in the right way is a key factor behind whether you are seen as attractive or not. Some of the common tests you will face are being insulted, someone being rude to you, or someone making some kind of disparaging remark about who you are and what you do. This is basically a way of seeing whether you are the socially adjusted person you are projecting. In order to pass these tests, you must have the right internal mindsets in place. These include always having a sense of self-respect, knowing where the limits of what you tolerate are, and being willing to walk away if someone pushes you too far. When done well, you will leave the person you are interacting with having the feeling that they have met someone who knows what they want out of life and knows how to best go about getting it. This contrasts with the majority of people who do not know where their boundaries are, do not know what their values are like, and are willing to put up with almost anything to get a chance with someone they are attracted to. This is why many people will willingly end up in the friend zone. They end up being used by the people they are attracted to and are almost always seen as personal assistants. They will do endless favors under the false idea that they are being a nice person and that this may eventually lead to them entering into a romantic or sexual relationship in the future. In actual fact, this is almost never true. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that putting up with nonsense will eventually lead to you getting with someone. In fact, the very opposite is true. You will always end up being the safe friend. You will never get what you want out of an interaction and you will always be used. Therefore, being scarce, unavailable, and choosing to put yourself first at all times is a vital part of becoming a high-value person who is effective within the field of seduction. Chapter 15: Spiritual Seducers. This chapter explores how certain seducers leverage a sense of spirituality or appeal to a higher purpose in their seduction tactics. It serves as both a cautionary tale about what to avoid and a suggestion of effective strategies to employ. Among all the chapters in this book, this one stands out as particularly intriguing yet fraught with risks due to its unconventional nature. While some individuals may respond positively to the approaches discussed herein, the majority may not. There are countless alternative methods for seducing someone that don't involve introducing spirituality into the mix. Thus, while the concepts presented are fascinating to learn and can be engaging to implement occasionally, they are unlikely to form the foundation of most people's seductive strategies. However, no exploration of dark seduction can overlook this subject. Seducers from both modern and classical times have incorporated spirituality into their allure. Notable historical figures, such as Rasputin, a monk from Old Russia, skillfully exploited his reputed supernatural abilities to further his seduction endeavors. In contemporary contexts, influential pickup artists, including the notorious Mystery, have also harnessed a sense of spirituality to achieve their objectives. A specialized technique. The unique techniques outlined in this chapter are often regarded as peculiar because society typically refrains from discussing spiritual matters. Those who openly embrace spirituality are frequently viewed as somewhat outside the mainstream. As a result, many may consider the attempt to weave spirituality into the seduction process as odd and even off-putting. Yet, as previously mentioned, the allure of scarcity can be remarkably compelling. When executed skillfully and in moderation, a touch of spirituality can transform even the most ordinary interactions into memorable experiences for both the seducer and the target. It's important to note that one need not genuinely embody spirituality to employ these techniques effectively. For instance, one of the earliest pickup strategies involved telling a pseudo-spiritual story known as the cube, intended to unveil insights about the target's personality that they may not recognize. This tactic is essentially a cold reading method that allows the seducer to create the illusion of possessing knowledge they don't actually have. The technique relies on vague statements that the target can interpret in various ways, requiring no authentic spiritual development from the seducer. Simply mastering this technique, as discussed in works like The Game, was often sufficient to yield positive outcomes. However, the use of spiritual seduction should be approached with caution in contemporary contexts, largely because it has been overly exploited in the early days of the pickup community. This topic has turned into a running joke, even featured on mainstream comedy shows, poking fun at the stereotypical pickup artist utilizing over-the-top and cliched methods like card tricks and palm reading. Consequently, many people are now quite skeptical of such approaches. To be effective today, any spiritual seduction techniques must be implemented in fresh and innovative ways to evade detection. Due to the fact that this type of seduction was overused in the early days, the way in which it is now used needs to be a lot more subtle. The seduction artist attempting to make use of this style of game should not actually claim to do magic tricks or do any kind of psychic reading. Such techniques are the equivalent of a sledgehammer and are likely to be laughable rather than seductive. Instead, it is better to use subtle hints, words, and other tactics to give the impression of specialist knowledge. Being able to guess something about someone before they actually tell you is an example of this. Another social, and more acceptable, way of being able to project a vibe of spirituality is to talk about some of the books and ideas which you have learned about within this area lately. Of course, to be able to do this well, requires you to actually take an interest in this area of life and read some of the main books that are popular at the time. This should be mentioned in a conversation in a very offhand and casual manner. There is no point in trying to really impress someone with the things you have read or learned. Instead, subtly introduce the type of things you have been reading and have found interesting, and judge whether the target responds to them well. If they seem to light up and become excited at the introduction of a more spiritual topic, then you may proceed to enjoy this area together further. If, however, you judge that someone is not interested when you initially introduce the topic, then it is better to let this topic drop, as it will not get you anywhere in the course of the interaction. Why it works. Human beings are naturally curious about things they cannot explain. All of us want to believe that there is something more than the world we see around us. This is why many people are interested in phenomena such as psychics, ghosts, UFOs, and other paranormal phenomenon. The ability to mention spirituality in a careful and chosen way taps into this desire to experience something that goes beyond the realm of our everyday existence. The extent to which this is mentioned and used requires discretion upon the part of the person who is carrying out the technique. For example, most people will have a slight level of curiosity in this area. As a result, most of the time, spiritual ideas should be used in a very light, casual, and uninterested way. The impression given should be that the seduction artist is talking about something that's slightly interesting to them, rather than something that they deeply care about. This is in order to appear to care about the area of spirituality the same amount as the person that the seduction artist is interacting with. The alternative to appearing slightly interested in this area, rather than fully interested, is to scare and intimidate the person you're interacting with. This is particularly the case in the course of the seduction which has just begun. Think about it from your own perspective. If you met someone who was able to tell you some interesting facts about some interesting spiritual topics which they had lately found out about, it may be an enjoyable and interesting part of the interaction for you. However, if they decided to talk about this in a way which was overly passionate or overly involved, then you may leave with the impression that they are crazy and some kind of nut job. Now obviously, you want to avoid giving this impression yourself. Who it works with. As already stated, this technique works with most people to some extent or another. This skill is down to being able to determine the extent to which someone considers himself to be spiritual, and therefore interested in this area of life. As already mentioned, one of the ways to do this is to introduce the topic in a slow, gradual, and subtle way, and then to judge the reaction of the person you have spoken to. This is by no means the only way to go about doing this. We will now look at some other ways of determining how well a person will respond to this type of spiritual seduction, and how to make the most of different types of people, and the way in which to interact with them using these techniques. Broadly speaking, there are 3 types of people with regards to spiritual seduction. First, there are those people who have the average amount of interest in the spiritual side of life. This will be the vast majority of people that you encounter in the course of your seductive efforts. Such people should be approached in the way described above, to carefully and subtly introduce the topic in a way which seems uninteresting and unimportant to the person talking about it. This will allow you to sprinkle in some of the alluring power of spirituality without overdoing it and putting off your target altogether. The second type of person you will encounter with regards to spiritual seduction is the person who is a complete skeptic and does not see this kind of thing as being relevant to them in any way whatsoever. Such people can still be spoken to about the area of spirituality, and it can even work well in your seductive efforts towards them. However, you will completely switch your approach with this type of person. After the initial mention of the spiritual topic, which is used to gauge their interest levels, you will then instantly see by their reaction, often a sign or a roll of the eyes, that they are a skeptic and do not see this kind of thing as being important to them. As soon as you get this impression, you can try to make a sarcastic or disparaging remark about the general area of spirituality. Sometimes, when you do this, you will see that they enjoy being sarcastic and dismissive about this area. When you get this impression, you can then decide to make mockery of this type of talk. This is a great way of connecting with that type of skeptical person. The final type of person you will encounter in the area of spiritual seduction is a person who is very spiritual and considers that they are a spiritual being of some type or another. This could take the form of someone who was a subscriber to a conventional religion or someone who is more New Age in their approach to spirituality. If you meet someone who is conventionally religious, you may wish to adjust the way in which you attempt to seduce them. This is due to the fact that many religions have prohibitions related to sexual behavior. You may wish to gauge this for yourself and judge whether this type of person is worth pursuing. However, you will often be surprised. Many people who are religious are as open to sexual experience as people who are not religious. They may just do it in a more subtle way due to the fact they feel conflicted between their spiritual beliefs and their human desires. People who take a New Age approach to spirituality may be some of the best people to seduce. This is due to the fact that such people tend to have a liberal outlook on life and may see sex as something which is positive and to be celebrated, rather than to be ashamed about and hidden away. You can generally judge such people, often by their appearance, and by the fact they will talk about topics such as crystals, healing, organic foods, and other markers of general hippie-like viewpoints on life. Proceed with caution. This chapter has been included as a point of interest and a record of a popular trend within the seduction community, rather than as advice on how someone should seduce in the modern times. Think of the ideas that you have just read as more of an interesting aspect of seduction that you may occasionally wish to play and have fun with, rather than something that you use regularly. The chapter also will prepare you to encounter people using out-of-date pickup techniques that they have read in the book The Game. If, for example, you are out and talking to someone you wish to seduce, and you see someone else using some technique such as palm reading or claiming to be psychic, then you can call them out on it as a result of what you have read here. Chapter 16, The Impact. Among all the chapters in this book, this one stands out as the most significant. This is because the principles outlined here are grounded in established psychological concepts, accompanied by actionable steps that yield profound and substantial outcomes. These outcomes pertain to the intricate and sensitive domains of psychological and sexual well-being, affecting both the individual employing the seduction techniques and the one being seduced. Many approach this subject unprepared for the far-reaching consequences it can have on their lives and the lives of others. In this chapter, we will investigate various dimensions of how dark seduction affects those involved. Both the positive and negative repercussions will be examined to highlight that this matter should not be taken lightly. It undeniably leads to results. A new you. If you choose to apply the insights presented in this book, be mindful that it will initiate significant transformations in your life, changes from which you may find it challenging to retreat. The concepts discussed involve a deep process of psychological and behavioral metamorphosis. By embarking on this journey, you will inevitably become a fundamentally different individual from who you were prior to engaging with these ideas. Typically, this transformation is beneficial and can enhance multiple aspects of your existence. Nevertheless, there can also be adverse effects if you fail to guard against the potential negative influences. We will first address how to protect yourself from the impacts of dark seduction before exploring the myriad positive outcomes. The dark side of the game. Many individuals who adopt seductive techniques often find themselves unprepared for the stark revelations about human nature that arise. For instance, those new to the world of seduction may hold naive perceptions about people and their motivations. After actively applying these seductive strategies, many discover that the reality of existence differs significantly from their previous beliefs. People often engage in Machiavellian behaviors without even realizing it, abandoning their moral principles for immediate gratification. This realization can be jarring for someone witnessing it for the first time. This unsettling experience is commonly referred to as the dark side of the game. Even individuals with the most honorable intentions may encounter doubts and challenges as they navigate this terrain. Examples of disheartening behaviors include witnessing frequent infidelity, watching friends abandon their peers for fleeting encounters, and observing deceitful maneuvering in social interactions. With this context in mind, How can you safeguard yourself from losing faith in humanity while participating in the dark seduction game? The first step is to acknowledge that the disconcerting behaviors you observe, while distressing, represent only a fraction of humanity and should not be extrapolated to everyone. For every individual you encounter, countless others remain unknown to you. Avoid forming sweeping generalizations about people's nature, thoughts, or feelings. Human behavior is infinitely varied, and it's easy to fixate on negative experiences, mistakenly thinking they represent a universal truth. In reality, the distressing incidents you witness reflect merely the area you have chosen to scrutinize. Many individuals who become disillusioned after engaging in the dark seductive game do so because they focus on the negatives, neglecting to appreciate the pleasant and enriching experiences they also encounter. This concept basically returns to our earlier discussion on reference experiences. You are likely to have a broad variety of experience in the course of your time within the dark seductive world. The experiences that you choose, consciously, to focus on, are the ones which are likely to change your perception and the time and the viewpoint you have. Therefore, if you wish to avoid having a negative viewpoint of people as a result of playing this game, you need to make a conscious decision to not focus on the type of people you are likely to meet who go against what you believe to be the right way to behave. If you are determined to come out of this seeing life, and the people who live it, in a certain way, then it is vital for you to consciously seek out and focus on the reference experiences which will reinforce this viewpoint that you desire. Addiction. Aside from the upsetting aspects of human nature which you are likely to encounter, it is vital for you to protect against becoming addicted to seduction. Many people are amazed by the speed at which they are able to have results that they never imagined possible in their wildest dreams. It can become incredibly addictive to exercise the power you gain, and you may begin to do this in a way which is out of balance with the other things in your life. For example, there are countless stories of people who gain some proficiency within the area of seduction, and go all out to pursue new seductions at the expense of everything else. This is ultimately a recipe for ruin. Dark seduction should be seen as having a role in life somewhat similar to someone who is able to gamble healthily. It is an interesting pastime that can bring intense feelings of loss or reward into someone's life, however it should only ever be a small part of someone's life. It is the same as any other intensely pleasurable behavior, such as drinking alcohol, which can be a great thing in someone's life, or can ruin them, depending on how they let it control them, or they choose to control it. The best way to protect against becoming addicted to the dark seduction game is to ensure that you do many other things in your life that you enjoy. For example, don't just focus on your next seduction. Focus on your career, focus on your health, and focus on things you do purely for pleasure outside of seduction, such as reading, watching movies, or anything else that you happen to enjoy. Ultimately, it is actually more seductive to be a well-rounded person with a lot going on in the life than it is to be a person who is obsessed with pickup and seduction and nothing else. The word of caution about being addicted to seduction and picking up new conquests does not mean that you can't, or even shouldn't, have periods in your life where seduction becomes your primary focus and the main use of your time. You may value periods of immersion in order to see a rapid increase in your skills, or to work on an area of seduction you have been struggling with. However, the point is to realize that pickup plays a part in your life, it isn't your entire life. The amount of attention you wish to dedicate to seduction may increase or decrease at different times, but you should never let it take up all of your energy and attention. Know your limits. As strange as it sounds, a lot of people end up having issues as a result of putting into practice dark seduction ideas in their own life. For example, there are countless tales of people who end up regretting the impact they have had on people. These feelings of guilt, regret, and remorse are by no means a foregone conclusion. They depend entirely upon the individual in question and the specific path they chose to walk within the wide map of seductive possibility. This is not a warning to do or avoid doing anything in particular, only to be comfortable with what you are doing. After the seduction is over, and your bed contains none but you, be prepared to be alone with your own thoughts and feelings. You may be able to enjoy hedonism and all of its consequences without any issue. If so, drink deep from the dark well. If you are unshackled from any sense of guilt or doubt, then you will be able to enjoy any aspect of life you wish. Not everyone reading this is as cold-hearted as some people who play the game, even if they wish they were. If you are the type of person who tends to have a strong conscience, if the angel on your shoulder is as loud or louder than the devil, then tread carefully. Some people have broken so many hearts and driven so many girls insane or suicidal that they end up taking their own life. If you have any doubt to the truth of this statement, then do your own homework. You will soon see the impact dark seduction can have on those who practice it. Also be aware of the consequences that seduction can have in your own life. You want to protect your reputation and your life outside of seduction. Consider the master of the game, Julien Blanc. This man is one of the greatest seducers to ever walk the earth. However, as a result of his activities, he is now banned from many countries. Always be careful about the consequences of what you do. The darkest diamonds. It's not all bad. There is every chance that your pursuit of the game, if done wisely, will lead to you becoming a stronger and more confident person who is able to influence and enjoy success within any area of their life. You will find that, as you internalize the concepts and principles of dark seduction, you become more reliant on yourself and less on others. You will realize that if you were capable of becoming a boss in this area, you are capable of winning in any other game as well. The world will be your oyster. Enjoy. Chapter 17, The End of the Tunnel. As your journey into the realm of dark seduction comes to a close, you've discovered that seduction encompasses both an internal reality and its external expression. Throughout this exploration, you've witnessed the diverse approaches seducers take in their unique art, dark seduction. You've learned about the actions involved in this process, alongside the psychological and scientific principles that underpin their effectiveness. Readers may have engaged with this book for various reasons. If your goal was to gain insight into this facet of life, you now possess a thorough overview of the darker elements within the seduction community. You're familiar with the types of individuals who resort to these methods, their motivations, and specific techniques they employ. Furthermore, you understand the profiles of those who are susceptible to these tactics and the reasons behind their effectiveness. You've come to realize that there is no magical formula for attracting someone's interest. Rather, there are practical applications of psychological principles that function in different contexts. Some may have sought to understand their own choices in interpersonal interactions. If that's the case, this book has provided you with clarity about your responses. Should you be dissatisfied with past decisions, you are now equipped to engage with future attention in a more informed manner, considering your reactions in light of the knowledge you've gained. You now have a clearer perspective on how others may attempt to influence you, giving you the tools to navigate these situations in a way that aligns with your own interests. For those who read this book as a means of protection and self-improvement, you should feel better prepared to achieve favorable outcomes in future seductive encounters. Many readers might have approached this book with the intent of mastering its techniques for personal application. If this resonates with you, I offer a cautionary note. Gaining proficiency in this area is not straightforward. The initial stages can be quite challenging. You will need to step outside your comfort zone and engage in real-world interactions that may feel uncomfortable. However, if you can persevere through these initial hurdles and view it as a training process for acquiring a valuable skill that can enhance your life, success is within reach. It's vital to remain focused on your goals while improving your seductive skills. Some may begin this journey seeking freedom and variety in their romantic lives, while others aim to find a meaningful relationship. Others still might be curious about the intricacies of human psychology and social responses to different stimuli. There are no right or wrong motives, however. To maximize the benefits of this book, you should have a clear understanding of what you hope to achieve. If you plan to implement what you've learned, take decisive action today. Building momentum is crucial to avoid simply setting this book aside and moving on without further reflection. While this approach may suit some who read for entertainment or distraction, if your aim involves practical application, proceed with caution. The potency of seduction techniques can be formidable, and not everyone is prepared to handle their effects. Approach this realm with awareness and care, as the nuances of human response can be unpredictable. However, when it comes down to it, a lot of people are not prepared for the intensity of the emotional responses and the feeling of power they get when trying these ideas out for themselves. You may wish to go slowly at first and gain a level of familiarity and comfort with what you are doing before trying out some of the more advanced ideas you have read. You will also want to be sure that you are capable of dealing with the consequences. People will become addicted to you and will chase you, and this is something that can cause problems later in your life. Be warned, the game is serious. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to become part of our growing community.